The trouble with people coming round is that you've got to try and find somewhere to hide all the detritus, all the stuff of everyday life, you know, which we all need to live. It's a universal problem, even for the people who live in the houses on the long list for House of the Year. I mean, especially for them.
It's that time of year again, to find the Royal Institute of British Architects House of the Year.
The vault is really something special, isn't it?
The judges have looked at hundreds of entries across the entire length and breadth of the UK to make up a long list for the 2019 prize.
It's confusing, but it's beautiful. And ultimately, it's your heart that tells you.
From exquisitely crafted boxes.
These are all made from cork block. It's a giant dartboard.
Yes.
Yeah.
To homes that are breathtaking in scale and ambition. You got some big chimneys.
It's not everybody's cup of tea.
These are all homes that you'll enjoy looking around.
I spent a lot of time staring into the windows. I'm quite nosy and I enjoy having a look.
The houses we'll see will be cut down to a shortlist of just 7. Before we find out in the final programme which is House of the Year 2019.
We love this room.
I bet you blinking well do.
From all the long-listed houses we're looking at, I've taken it upon myself to separate them into 4 loose categories. In later episodes, we'll be looking at houses that respond to their surroundings, houses that are down to earth, and houses all about materials and craftsmanship. First up, though, we're looking at experimental houses.
These are all pioneering, innovative homes that push at the boundaries of what's possible. Think of them as modern-day explorers, boldly going where no house has gone before. Like the Flint House, which was the winner in 2015, these are all places that are right on the cutting... Ow!
Helping me to look around this outstanding group are my friends, the design expert and writer Michelle Ogundehin.
That is absolutely epic. I mean, there's no other word for it.
And the architect, Damion Burrows.
When my mother saw this, she asked me when I was going to grow up.
Oh, great.
Did you know that Play-Doh was invented for cleaning wallpaper? Or that the Slinky was originally designed as part of some stabilising equipment for ships? No. Goes to show, doesn't it, that actually existing ideas with perfectly good applications can be reinvented and turned to much greater commercial success. Which begs the question, what are the houses of the future going to be made from? No, that's ridiculous.
Our first long-listed house is in a town of privilege and gentility. Eton in Berkshire, a surprising testbed for a new experimental design project.
This can't be it. Hello, Dido.
Yes,
Hi.
good morning.
Matt.
Hi.
How are you? Yeah, very well. You?
Very well, thanks.
Good. I'm assuming this is not your innovative experiment. Is it, or is
It's
it?
been here a couple of 100 years.
This one.
Yeah.
You have to step into the back garden of Matt and Dido's house to find this. It's called Cork House. Yep, it's a house constructed out of cork. The walls, the roof, almost everything is made of, well, cork. It is the first of its kind in the UK. Beneath the 5 pyramidal roofs lies a modest sitting room adjoining a kitchen with a bedroom at one end and a bathroom and hidden sleeping area at the other. Under the 5th roof is a passageway and covered seating area. Cork House's pioneering owners and designers are Matthew Barnett Howland and Dido Milne. They wanted to experiment with a way of building a house as simply as possible.
It's quite primitive caveman
But
stuff.
in
Big,
cork-
1/2 metre thick blocks of cork, one on top of the other with no glue or mortar.
I mean, that's like Lego.
Plant-based Lego.
Plant-based Lego.
We just got more and more interested in cork and all the properties as a sustainable building material and, you know, trying to push it to its absolute maximum.
I like that.
Solid, simple, sustainable construction.
Cork's a wonder material. Strong, soundproof, rot-resistant and a fantastic insulator. It is also sustainable, harvested from the bark of living trees which regenerate. There's a lot of air in cork, so the bricks are worryingly light.
The roof lights act as paperweights to hold down the whole structure because there's no glue holding it down, otherwise it would blow away.
So you're telling me that these pyramidal structures, which are all made from cork block, are not glued, they're not mortared, they are simply blocks resting on each other, and you stick a great big skylight at the top of each pyramid,
Yes.
and that's stopping it from blowing away.
Yes.
Radical.
The RIBA judges admired Cork House for the way it simplifies the construction process and for the way it puts sustainability at the heart of the design, all the while forming an intriguing and inventive home.
Lead on and lead in. This is lovely.
Inside, the natural cork has been left unfinished. Solid timber frames at either end of the space help brace the walls, and the skylights above, of course, cast light on the beautifully simple interior.
These ziggurats, they sort of lift the soul towards the heavens. But I can't get over the multi-sensory nature of the material. Do you know what I mean? Smell, sound, touch.
That's thanks to the cork.
Yeah. What noise does the wall make?
Give it a good thump.
Yeah? It doesn't yield, but it's not hard. It's springy. Could you paint it?
I mean, you could put a lime render on the inside if you wanted and have a finish. I mean, at the moment, it's a sort of potentially a big pin board.
So it is. Or a giant dartboard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Be careful what you aim for, though. Not everything here is made of cork.
These are the sprinkler system, and this is for power up to the roof light and the smoke detectors.
Right.
But as there's nowhere to hide, it's important what it looks like. So then we do have design decisions about, you know, how do you want to set the sprinklers out to make it an architectural feature.
Matt and Dido have built a house that's beautiful, atmospheric, and understated.
So, you have to ask, in a building like this, where is the glamour, the glitz, the bling, all that lovely shiny stuff? The answer is in here.
In the company of a mirror brass bath, you can seek refuge both from others and from cork. This is a cork-free haven, though it too has a ziggurat roof, a painted one, because they've squeezed in another bedroom above it. The most dramatic bedroom, though, is downstairs at the end of the house.
Oh, yeah. What an amazing vaulted space.
It's great when you're lying in bed, essentially under it.
Can I try that?
Yeah.
Yes.
You lie on the bed and you...
Yeah.
Oh, man, if I look straight up, the thing just almost like a bellows on a camera. It just kind of...
Yes, comes around
just
you,
sort of
yeah.
seems to move. How do you sleep in here?
Remarkably well. We've had quite a few friends saying how amazingly restorative it is.
I'm enjoying this too much to actually want to get up.
Matt and Dido spent 6 years designing Cork House. They started the project with Matt's father, William, who was also an architect. He sadly passed away, but left them some money to continue their cork experiment.
He was very good at telling you not to give up and do it again.
That's probably where the
Which is,
bit where it rubbed off most on me.
Matt and Dido co-designed Cork House with the architect Oliver Wilton. Before they built the house, they constructed cork models, then engineered full-size blocks in a lab to test out the interlocking system they'd evolved.
I'm going to slide this one along. In
Yeah,
fact,
please
these
do.
Yeah, so two together are a little substantial in weight. Can we slide this one along so
Yeah,
you
let
can
me-
see the
Yep.
joint? There.
There we go.
It's snug on. Look
Yep.
at that. And then do the same thing with this.
Yep, you're okay, sir.
And suddenly you become an expert builder in this system. Is that on? Yeah, that's
Yeah,
on.
that's
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just
Wow.
built your first cork wall.
I feel as though I've also... So it's like building a piece.
That's 3 down, but it took 1,200 blocks to make Cork House. Staggering. Equally amazing is that when the building reaches the end of its working life, it can be taken apart, brick by brick, and put in the soil to biodegrade. Sustainable design is fundamentally important now, and it's thrilling to imagine what Cork House might inspire.
There's no doubt this project is enormously innovative, experimental even. But its magic, its specialness, doesn't come from trickery or sorcery, illusion, sleight of hand. It comes instead from a profound sense of wonder. We've seen one wild experimental home. There are 4 more to go before we discover which of them are in the running to be crowned House of the Year. Experimenting on yourself is a risky business. A science is littered with ill-fated stories of self-administered potions and first and last trips in flying machines. So, if you're going to experiment in building a new kind of home, is it wise to start with your own? Well, yes, of course.
The next house on our long list of cutting-edge homes can be found in the South Downs of West Sussex. In this place, rich in Roman history, Michel Ogundehin has come to have a look at this. Is it a rebuilt Roman ruin? Or a Palladian Italian farmhouse? Maybe a castle, but with those arrow slit windows? No. It's Nithurst Farm, a truly experimental family home. It was designed by the architect Adam Richards.
I've always loved old buildings, and that's partly why I became an architect. And so it's great to be able to find ways of adapting them for today.
Nithurst Farm was his testing ground. It was built for him, his wife Jessica, and their 3 young children.
I had a big filing cabinet of ideas that I wanted to try out.
It was very important to balance the ideas with the practicalities of a family home.
The large double-height central space on the ground floor houses the kitchen and dining area with a formal sitting room and children's playroom bookending the space. On the first floor are the 2 children's rooms, plus 3 further guest rooms and a family bathroom, with the master bedroom located on the top floor.
Hello.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. Hello, hello.
Lovely to see you.
Well, this is all quite monumental, isn't it?
It's like a modern house wrapped in a Roman ruin. There's quite a lot of Roman sort of remains around here, and we wanted to design something that sort of felt as though it had always been here in a way.
So you wanted to kind of reference ancient stuff but make a modern house.
Exactly that, yeah. The Romans loved bricks, and their empire was sort of built with things like viaducts and aqueducts. We love the idea of taking this primary building material, the brick, and making a contemporary house with it.
Roman bricks were considerably smaller than the ones used in most modern houses, but Adam needed 30,000 of them. He could only afford cheaper, standard bricks. So he came up with a novel way of achieving a similar result.
We use these very thick mortar joints to play a bit of a game of scale with your eye with the bricks, so you can't tell whether it's a small Roman-sized brick or a normal-sized brick.
So they're normal-sized bricks, but then the mortar is twice as big.
3 times as big.
3 times as
Yeah,
big
yeah,
as normal.
The idea of super thick mortar to suggest that the bricks are tiny was a new one for their main contractor, Matthew Duke.
From your perspective, did you just think, oh, this is architectural madness? Why do that?
There was a certain
amount of why. There's a risk of the mortar either being too wet or not mixed well enough before it's used, so it can sag if you're not gentle with laying the bricks. Every mix has got to be absolutely accurate to avoid the colour variation, which would jump out a mile on this brickwork.
They couldn't lay the mortar for 6 months while they waited for the right weather. But Adam's experiment has been a success. He's made a building that is utterly of its time, and yet it seems to resonate with the classical world that was once here, in this place. The house was longlisted by the judges from the Royal Institute of British Architects because of its chameleon-like charm. It seems neither old nor new, somewhere in between.
Oh, wow.
The inside is equally intriguing, like a modern concrete church.
Well, it was important for us to have a big main space for the children and for our family to be in, and for the kitchen to be in the centre of that space.
When we were looking at the design, we realised that actually there's this sort of great history of medieval great halls where the whole household lived in one big space, and there would be a fire in the middle, people would live, eat, even sleep in this great hall.
Although we don't sleep in here.
Modelling a family home on a communal great hall makes a lot of sense. But medieval architects never had to think about where to put the washing machine. Adam, however, is a modern man and has hidden away a utility room, a study, a cloakroom, and a larder in a series of thick concrete pillars that are supporting the double-height ceiling.
These look like massive towers. Is that what's holding it all up?
That's right, yes. They're holding up the building, but they're also doing useful jobs. So all the things that are often tucked away at the back of a house, they're all open onto this big one main space.
Clever. And when sharing one big room all gets too much, go left through this door to reach the tranquility of a fine and formal living room.
Oh, how wonderful. See, with your big great hall in the other room, I kind of assumed that was all of your living space, but then you've created this wonderful little sort of more private room for yourself.
This is like the cosy room.
I love how here, to get that cosier feel, you've literally cloaked the walls in kind of what looks like very sort of old tapestries.
The big main space can sometimes feel quite chaotic.
No.
So it's a relief to come in here.
So, a left turn from the Great Hall takes you to peace and quiet, but a right turn leads to a mysterious secret passage.
It's all got a bit dark and twisty-turny back of house now, hasn't it?
Yeah.
What's happening here? Oh, hello. Hello. Oh, this is going to be very handy for keeping an eye on the kids, isn't it?
It certainly is. We can sort of shout bath time from here without having to go all the way down.
And a kind of great hall, you would have had a kind of gallery like this, wouldn't you?
You might assume that a house steeped in layers of historical reference takes itself too seriously. But this place is practical and playful, built with family life in mind. It took over 2 years from start to finish to build this house. The concrete skeleton was put up first before it could be clad with bricks. Everyone was very keen to get it finished quickly.
It took ages to make the concrete skeleton.
Really?
It took about a year, and then they did the bricks for about a year, and then they did the rest in about a year. And we went there every weekend, so that got a bit boring.
You can't get bored here now, though. There are 6 bedrooms to play hide and seek in, and another secret staircase leading to a bathroom, hidden, again, in one of the giant concrete pillars. And there are more secrets on the top floor.
Our bedroom is in this cupboard.
Oh, may I?
Please do.
Oh, but which way do I go?
Well, there are 2 bedrooms here as opposed to 1 because we have a bit of an issue with snoring.
I'm the snorer, but Jessie's a very light sleeper.
So Adam didn't want to be always going off to a small room in shame. So we have 2 rooms the same.
Well, it's a very, very modern solution, isn't it?
Yeah, we realised that there's no point designing an amazing master bedroom that one of us would constantly be not sleeping in. So we just thought, why not make 2 mirror image bedrooms and then just join them along the front here.
Marital harmony may have driven the design brief upstairs, but the house was built for the whole family. Adam's plans romantically draw on and then reinterpret centuries of beautiful architectural ideas. It is wonderful.
Adam and Jessica took a risk with the experimental nature of their home, and it could have ended up being a bit of an architectural folly. But instead, it's a fantastic family home. But best of all, the children get to grow up in their very own castle.
So far, we've seen 2 groundbreaking experimental houses. We've 3 more to go.
Oh, it's beautiful. Very sculptural room.
Before we discover which of them the RIBA judges have shortlisted for House of the Year. The minimalist composer, John Cage, once wrote a piece of music called 4 minutes 33 seconds, which comprised nothing but total silence. Don't worry, this isn't it. We just couldn't afford the copyright. And actually, it's for piano, not guitar. Anyway, it proves the point that in order to be experimental, you do not need to be loud. And in this vein, our next experimental longlister is quietly placed on the edge of the charming and traditional Peak District. Architect Damion Burrows has come to take a look.
This is a really beautiful part of the world with row after row of stone-built cottages. But in amongst all of this comforting regularity, it makes it exciting when someone shakes things up just a little bit.
This is Stackyard, a Derbyshire stone cottage that just slightly distorts and warps what you'd expect to find in the village. Placed oddly at 90 degrees to the road, with no standard tiled roof either, rather corrugated cement. The plywood inside is also not what you'd expect. Stackyard is a low-key experiment by architect James Boone, who designed it for him and his wife, Carol.
We were living in a big open plan, 3-bedroomed, semi-detached house in Derby.
We did make the conscious decision that we didn't want children. And suddenly we realised how much we were rattling around. It takes a lot of time to clean this. It takes a lot of time to maintain the garden.
It was a waste of a really lovely house. So we decided that we were going to try and find somewhere a little bit smaller.
So they built their own, in a village they knew and loved. You enter the house from the side via the south-facing courtyard, which provides a welcoming private space. The ground floor consists of a guest bedroom, utility, bathroom and master bedroom. Upstairs, there's a double-height kitchen and living area with a cosy study for good measure.
Hi.
Hi.
James, how are you?
Nice to meet you.
Carol.
Hello.
Great to meet you. The style of the house fits in with the rest of the village, but you've clearly moved this conversation on. The size of the window openings, they're not what you would normally associate with a cottage in Derbyshire.
They're one of the elements that allows us to show that it is a modern building, and I think people, they can see this is something a little bit different.
Not least in its shape. James decided against building a conventional rectangular plan. Instead, the house was turned on its side and shape-shifted to the irregular plot size, leaving more space for a south-facing garden.
We had quite a big garden before, and I wanted to take the essence of that with us. We thought we'll just have to kind of compress everything to almost miniature. We need just one veg bed, so we squeezed one in, and then I've got a miniature greenhouse.
Well, that's one way to downsize, shrink everything. The experiment continues inside.
See, this is unusual.
James and Carol built this house for under £160,000, which meant finding a low-cost but beautiful way of finishing the interior. So they covered the walls with plywood.
put plywood up, you've got to get it right first time, but once it's up, that's it, it's done, and it's beautiful. We wanted to get away from plasterboard walls where you've got to put in certain skirtings and architraves and you've got to skim it and paint it and paint it. And there's all these different layers and trades that have to come through. We did at first have a few people say, when are you painting the walls?
It might take visiting townsfolk some time to adjust, not only to the materials and surfaces, but also the layout. The bedrooms are downstairs. The main living space is above.
When you come up into this space, you can really understand why you flipped the arrangement round.
Yeah, by putting the living space upstairs, not only do we get glimpses between the houses to the countryside in the distance, but all of this volume just means that the floor space we've got here feels bigger.
This is much nicer this way around. This is the bit you live in, so it's more important to have a view.
It's got everything they could ever need. It is bespoke, and yet all on a budget. There's a custom-made dining table built into the stairs to save space. And in the study, they've pulled a clever trick with the shelving.
We wanted this to feel like a library. We looked at getting some shelving made to measure, but it was eye-wateringly expensive. So we went and bought some off-the-shelf shelving, and it's that one in the middle where, because we've sort of cut that one to fit, it now makes it all feel like it was made to measure.
The RIBA judges admired Stackyard for its sensitivity, the way a new house had been made to fit, and fit in right in the heart of a rural Derbyshire village.
This is a very clever house. It punches way above its modest weight. It's designed to sit comfortably with its neighbours. It's experimental and innovative, which I think makes it a very exciting place to live.
Innovation is a word greatly overused in the English language, along with up-and-coming area and amazeballs. Now, true innovation in domestic architecture is a rare thing indeed, but where it does exist, these experimental homes truly push beyond the limits. They are the daredevils, if you like. They like to push harder, lean out further than anybody else.
Our next longlister pushes the limits of what's possible with eco-buildings. Michelle is in Buckinghamshire to find it. This is Lark Rise. Hidden among the trees of the picturesque Chiltern Hills, it's a super low-energy experimental green home. Elegant, unfussy, and yet high-tech. On the ground floor is the master bedroom and guest room, both with ensuite bathrooms, as well as a boot room and combined plant and utility room. Upstairs, the central staircase separates two spaces, a living room on one side and a combined kitchen dining area on the other. It was the idea of a Swiss psychiatrist and animal lover, Hanny Wiedeker, who commissioned it.
I grew up in a family where we did not waste. I don't buy more than I really want to. It's terrible what you find everywhere, especially plastic.
Hanny's dislike of waste led her to build a house that didn't waste a thing. Lark Rise holds on to every last bit of energy. There's high-performance triple glazing, insulated window frames, and super thick insulation. Even the heat from the oven is saved and used to keep the rooms warm.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
What was your inspiration for building your own house?
We wanted to construct a building which is quite normal in Germany and Switzerland, where I come from. It's important to save energy in the world, I think. We all know that. We try to make the house which saves energy.
This house doesn't just save energy, it generates more than it uses. It's a mini power station, one of the first of its kind in the UK, with 38 solar panels on the roof. The RIBA judges praised Lark Rise as a revolutionary net energy positive building. They also admired the high-quality craftsmanship and the atmosphere of serenity the building has.
You see that the beams are horizontal and not vertical, because this makes the house inviting and friendly. If it would be vertical, you would feel like you go in a jail or I don't know what.
There's not a whiff of the penitentiary about the semi-open plan first floor. Delicate, low-carbon eco-concrete supports divide this wide and wonderful space into a living room, central staircase, and a kitchen to the left. There are no prison bars at the windows either. The landscape seems to pour into the building.
We want to look out now, so the cladding had to be that way.
There really is a kind of very natural sense of flow here that I feel is helped completely by all the materials that surround us.
Which are tactile, and the real thing too. Downstairs, the structural concrete makes its cool presence felt throughout the corridors and bedrooms. The smooth poured walls have been left as they were, straight out of the mould that made them. Everything's been pared back to the minimum. Even the doors. I mean, why have two when you can have one?
This is another kind of saving. This is the loo, and if you are on the loo, you can just pull that door and it's closed. You have your privacy for sure in your loo. And anybody is free to use the bathroom without being disturbed.
Two in one door. Either I get privacy in the toilet or I can shut off the whole bathroom. Right.
It probably all gets a bit trickier if there's three of you, but never mind.
It's quite good.
Genius.
It's not my idea. I got it from a hotel near Luton where I was fascinated by this and thought that's a good idea.
Inspiration comes in many forms. The house took 2 painstaking years to build. To make it as efficient as possible, it was heavily insulated and made airtight. Overseeing every stage of the project was Hanny's architect, Justin Beer.
What were the challenges that you faced?
The soil conditions are very, very sticky. And a crane came along in winter and said to the contractor, I'm sorry, I'm not stopping here. It's just too dangerous. I've got a 30-ton crane. If this overturns, it'll crush the building.
But that's got your precious windows that you need to get fitted right now. What did you do?
In desperation, I found a local farmer.
The windows were eventually lifted in with an agricultural telehandler. Building a radical, innovative home like this is a remarkable achievement. More so for Hanny, because she doesn't plan to live in it.
I have over 10 dogs and I have alpacas and many, many more animals. I couldn't have that in this place, so I stay where I am.
You've done this as a kind of an example
Yes.
to kind of show people what's possible.
I'm very satisfied that I can contribute something for the future generations.
Hanny is a trailblazer. In the long term, we'll all benefit from this. Right now, it's the tenants, Zoe and Ian.
Living here is quite different from living in an ordinary house because the bills are an awful lot less.
The electricity bills, yeah.
Yeah.
Council tax, isn't it? Yeah.
If I won the lottery, I would love to have a house just like this one.
This house is a real game changer. It shows us the future possibilities of architecture. But what I love the most is that it carries all of that ecological sophistication so lightly and not at the expense of beauty.
We have only one more exquisite home to see from this year's long list before we find out which the RIBA judges have shortlisted for House of the Year. Nanotechnology is the science of building extremely ingenious microscopic machines that could change our culture, revolutionise technology, cure illness. And so it is with our cities. With an ever-increasing demand for space as they begin to bulge. So it pays big to think small. Where is it? It was here.
I'm hunting for the next experimental house in the busy streets of South London. Somewhere among these rows of terraced houses sits one of the smallest homes on the long list.
Ah, you see, it may be petite, but this house has a big presence.
This is Pocket House. Two beautifully crafted boxes balanced delicately on top of one another. Clad in matchstick-thin strips of western red cedar. Occupying an area of only 35 square metres, this is a brave experiment in building as big as possible on a tiny, tiny site. Almost 50% of the living space within Pocket House is below ground. A light well forms a patio area that connects to the two bedrooms, with a bathroom in the opposite corner. The ground floor consists of a hallway, WC and kitchen diner, topped off with a living room on the first floor. This house was designed and built by architects Nicola and Ty, who live here with their two daughters.
Originally on the site was a double garage. It was very small.
Yeah, it wasn't quite clear if we could build a house here.
Some of our friends and family were a little bit uncertain as to what we had actually committed ourselves to.
Oh, hi.
Hi, Kevin.
Nicola, yeah?
Hi.
Hi,
Nice to
pleased
meet
to
you.
meet you.
Hi,
Ty, how are
welcome.
you? Great, not difficult to find. I mean, even though it's on a small plot, small building, it's kind of, actually, it proclaims itself quite...
It's different than its neighbours.
Stridently.
We could only build within the footprint of the double garage on ground floor.
Wow. And then you decided to make the first floor even smaller.
Well, we had to. Because first floor, we had to follow the building line of the terraces, and also towards the rear, we had to come in by a meter, not to take the neighbor's sunlight away.
Wow.
This type of house is something you might see more in other really dense places like Tokyo, for example, where people are fighting for every inch of available land.
The judges praised this transformation of an unpromising site and the care and craftsmanship lavished on the project, the effect of which is to magic up a sense of peace, a refuge from the outside world.
Oh,
Come on in.
oh, this is lovely. It's lovely. It's cool as well.
On the ground floor, the kitchen is tranquil, softly toplit, and crafted from simple materials. Danish bricks and Douglas fir joists are all exposed. Plasterboard would have taken up too much space.
So you've reduced your wall makeup to the minimum.
Every millimetre on this project was critical to making the spaces work.
There's not an inch, I mean millimetre, of space wasted in this innovative micro-home. Stairs double as casual seating areas, corridors are kept to a minimum. The kitchen was custom engineered and built in to fit. What Nicola and Ty have achieved is all the more remarkable, given the initial attitude of the local authority.
So what was their view? Did they accept the idea that you could stick a house here?
We received the letter from the local authority was not so positive.
I think reading between the lines, it was don't come back, nothing on this site's probably going to be accepted. And so, of course, we took that as a challenge.
By cleverly working within the confines of the tiny plot, it's a challenge they've more than risen to. Pocket House is a triumph of efficiency. The living room upstairs is compact but delightful.
Oh, it's beautiful. I can't believe that piano is integrated into the building. It's kind of sucked into the wall almost, you know. And the wall is the cupboards, is the wall, wherever possible. Very sculptural room.
The atmosphere is entirely created by the light coming through.
In the evening, this space really transforms. The sun coming through the screen throws this beautiful pattern along this wall, so it's the best space to be on that couch there with a book in the evening sun.
By allowing spaces in the building to change personality through the day, they become different spaces, almost like a new room or a new corner for you to enjoy in a different way.
Yeah.
The wizardry of these architects lies in their ability to manipulate light and exploit its changing qualities through the days and seasons. There's also another trick to make a small house feel bigger. Bring in small humans.
My friends think the house is nice. Quite a few of them think that it's quite big because of the rooms are quite big.
They're not really. Let's be honest. Well, OK, apart from the basement where the 2 bedrooms and the bathroom are. Here they could dig out right to the edges of the site and carry on experimenting.
One big space.
Yeah.
The girls have got bunk beds in actually a really generous room.
They occupy the whole space when they play. It all
Okay,
becomes their
but what, you
play
just
area.
shut this off at night?
But exactly, if they want a bit more
yeah,
privacy, or you just
that's
close it.
great. So after they've gone to bed, you get a corridor to your bedroom.
Exactly.
And by day, they get an enlarged bedroom with a
desk.
desk.
All their stuff.
Without the basement, there wouldn't be a home. It just wouldn't work.
The basement was built by a specialist contractor, digging down almost 4 metres in a tight urban site. The work above ground was supposed to be done by a separate contractor, but shortly after they started, the company went bust.
We had a sort of a weekend to decide what are we going to do. Are we going to take it on ourselves and keep the crew who we had on site together, or are we going to try to find another contractor? So there was a sort of make or break moment where we had to...
What did you do?
Well, we decided to set up on our own as the main contractor, and we took the guys that were
You took the
already
guys
here.
on?
And we took the guys on because they were effectively out of a job.
It was quite stressful at the time just
Yeah.
to make that decision, and
of course,
not a happy week.
Becoming a main contractor with no previous experience was the experimental gamble of a lifetime. But it paid off brilliantly. The neighbours are fascinated.
I think it's beautiful. I really like it. I'm ashamed to say that I spent a lot of time staring into the windows. You can't see in as much as you could, but I'm quite nosy and I enjoy having a look.
Maybe it's time to invest in 1 or 2 curtains. Pocket House is a marvel of a micro home, ordered and elegantly understated, changing and adaptive. Demure? No. Deceptive? Yes.
This house is altogether a bit more of a player, a punter. This house took a gamble on this site. This place dances on its feet. Five bold, innovative and, well, bonkers homes, which each try something a little different. But which of them do the RIBA judges think worthy of a place on the shortlist?
Cork House, the vegetarian Lego brick home that's radically simple and sustainable. Nithurst Farm, a house that seemingly spans the centuries and plays evocative tricks on the mind. Stackyard, a shape-shifted home that delivers fantastic value and experiences. Lark Rise, the high-performance eco-house that's also a power station. And the poetic Pocket House, a seemingly large home that brilliantly defies its tiny plot. John Pardy, the chair of the judging panel,
fabulous,
can tell us which is the first home to make it onto this year's shortlist.
So, John, what have you shortlisted in the experimental category?
The first is Nithurst Farm in Sussex.
Why shortlist this project?
It's beautiful. It's slightly bonkers in the most lovely way. It felt curiously like some kind of big cathedral, but it isn't that big.
Yeah.
But inside it's concrete, and it all confounds you. So it's this kind of labyrinth, which is enticing.
The games it plays extend to ideas about how old it really might be, or
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it's just poetry in 3D.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we're absolutely thrilled. Well, are you?
It feels great, yeah. All that hard work, it's really paid off. So really wonderful news.
So, Nithurst Farm makes the shortlist. But there's room for one more experimental home.
So this is the second project you've shortlisted?
This is the Pocket House in South London.
What do you think clinched it for the judges here?
It's exquisite. Very precisely done. This house was beautifully detailed. Every tiny thing was thought through. The light is gorgeous in there. You never feel trapped in a small room. Very clever.
And this is a great exercise in that, isn't it? In kind of demonstrating how you get everything you need in a relatively small plot.
Absolutely.
you serious? That's so cool.
It's amazing.
Sorry.
Yeah. Quite an unexpected
Yeah,
result.
I'm completely.
I'd say.
I'm.
Very unexpected.
Let's have a party.
So the competition begins, with Nithurst Farm and Pocket House making the shortlist. 5 more will join them before we find out who's won the RIBA House of the Year 2019.
It's important to remember that experimentation is bound up with failure. But there again, it's absolutely imperative to establish what doesn't work before you can prove what does. And what marks out the great innovators, the game changers, is their ability to pick themselves up out of failure again and again, to persevere and then triumph. We need more mad scientists in the world. Fewer mad architects, admittedly, but more mad scientists.
Next time, we'll be looking at houses that work with their surroundings.
The bees have already started making nests in there.
5 more breathtaking homes, all with a story to tell.
We once had an egg thrown at it.
Oh, that's brave.
OK, now this is exciting.
Where they are. All of them are beautiful and ingenious. All of them cleverly connect to their setting.
Exploring these buildings with me is the architect Damion Burrows.
You turn the corner and you're in this courtyard and it just feels majestic.
And the interiors and design expert, Michelle Ogundehin.
And of course, that is absolutely epic. I mean, there's no other word for it.
In order to help a new building fit into its surroundings, respond to its context, you can choose to look around the environment and the buildings and incorporate the shapes and the colours of what you see there to make something that truly blends in. And that's one way of doing it. There is another, though. If you're clever, you can make a building magically disappear into its environment, like a stealthy ninja, so no one would know you're there.
Our first long-listed master of stealth is in West London. It's somewhere among this sea of traditional white-rendered wedding cake buildings, crouching like an architectural tiger. Blink and you'll miss it. This is Earl's Court House. Discreet, clever, and beautiful. Ducked down low, it peeks its gleaming glass head just above the wall.
Quickly round the corner.
It was designed by a lover of the minimalist, the architect Sophie Hicks, who also lives there.
When I started designing Earl's Court House, the aim was to maximise the potential of the very small site. How do we get something that feels really comfortable, that looks really settled and correct in the street, that uses every square centimetre?
The RIBA judges were wowed by Earl's Court House. They admired the simple use of concrete and the delicate insertion of this modern building into its traditional setting.
Sophie.
Hi, Kevin.
How are you?
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
well.
I found it. It's hidden rather like a little glass house, a greenhouse behind the wall here.
You don't see it very obviously from the street, and I like that. I don't want a flashy, look at me, sock it to you house.
The open-plan living area is on the ground floor, with a compact kitchen tucked into the corner next to the light well. Downstairs, there's a master bedroom with a bathroom, plus a guest bedroom and extra bathroom. Earl's Court House makes every effort to fit in. It's covered in white corian, crystalline, synthetic and super hard, a 21st century version of the white stucco of the houses around. This home is well-mannered and polite, unlike some of the residents.
We once had an egg thrown at it at the end of last
Oh,
year.
that's brave.
I know.
What, at the glass?
Yes. Came up one morning and there was a broken egg on the front. Human beings don't like change. Anything new, people are going to object to.
No one could surely complain about what's inside, though. Step down into this modernist TARDIS and...
This is much larger and taller.
And full of light. Almost as though Sophie had decided to live in the open air, under an elegant concrete canopy. A structure partly inspired by a much-loved cartoon, The Flintstones.
Fred Flintstone was a caveman who had a car with stone wheels. And I can't remember the name of his wife. Anyway, everything was very lumpen. Wilma, thank you. So very heavy, very lumpen, and we're in a highly technological age. The glass is very sophisticated. I wanted to bring some basic human Fred Flintstone kind of aspect. So I said, why don't we do Fred Flintstone's tables? Because wouldn't it be nice to have a table that's really tough and strong and cast it on the column? This is how Fred Flintstone would make his table.
That's if he'd used concrete. The concrete here, though, was carefully moulded in precisely cut wooden shuttering that was dampened to produce an exact imprint of the timber that lines up everywhere. Between the struts and panels of the concrete skeleton, they inserted the glazing. Lifting these delicate sheets of glass into an incredibly tight space was no mean feat. But the results speak for themselves. There's a particularly ingenious window in the living area.
Oh, yeah.
It opens up to the outside.
I wasn't expecting that pane to... I was expecting something else to happen.
And it's so nice being so close to the tree, because in London to be close to greenery is very rare.
Big well.
Yes.
So rather than having
So this is the
bifolds over a
handrail.
patio,
So, you know,
this is just a handrail.
it's a very nice place to hang out. It's comfy.
Earl's Court House is a precise house, full of surprises. I'm a big fan of the hidden kitchen.
I wanted it to be as invisible as possible, because
Yeah.
it's in the living room, and I don't like a kitchen visible in the living room.
These are gorgeous. That's not plywood covered in rubbish. This is...
They're Corian.
The opening mechanism is glorious on these, because you'd expect
just
it to...
drifts up.
It just does drift. You're
Yeah.
not going to hit yourself with
It's
that.
good.
Ah, this is a stroke of genius.
There's no sink, there's no dishwasher. Hey, it's behind, in a hidden little zone here.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody says, I can't live like this. I
It's
need to
fine.
make mess. You can do that in here.
Yes, so I cook here. I have my chopping boards here. I can speak to people who are here for dinner. And then all the messy pans and stuff I can dump by the sink or in the sink.
And they wonder how you retain your pristine lifestyle.
Down a curvy concrete staircase, there are 2 bedrooms, equally pristine and pared back. When Sophie's kids moved out, she downsized to live in this minimal concrete cube. Then her daughter Olympia moved back into the guest room, just an interconnected door away from her mum.
The second bedroom was meant to be home office or dressing room / guest room, but Olympia moved in, so she's nicked my wardrobes.
This house is kind of designed for 1.5 people.
Yeah.
And you're more than a half.
It is a small house, so we're not stepping on each other's toes at the moment, but there could become a point when we do.
As in truth, though, does it work out?
You can't let the house get messy.
Right.
So it controls all your hoarding tendencies and all your messy tendencies.
And it controls those normal human chaotic tendencies with order and beauty, with the changing play of light on surfaces, with an experience which is private and yet connected, unassuming yet powerful.
There's a lesson to learn here, isn't there, children? Not to show off, especially when you're building in a really tight plot like this one in central London. See, this house is shy and retiring. It's not flamboyant. This building is modest. In fact, this place blazes with modesty. We've seen one house that's beautifully settled into its surroundings. There are 4 more to go before we discover which the RIBA judges have shortlisted for House of the Year. Frank Lloyd Wright coined the term organic architecture decades before anybody thought of using it to describe a carrot or a cotton bud. This great architect is famous for creating buildings and structures which ended into a sort of poetic dialogue with their surroundings. Good architecture perhaps ought to be a bridge to nature, not a barrier.
Architect Damion Burrows has travelled to the Isle of Man to see our next long-listed house, part of a wildly ambitious project to regenerate its surroundings. This is restorative rural retreat built into the hillside, clad in local stone with a long ribbon window suggestive of a bird hide. It's attached to an existing traditional white cottage. Technically, restorative retreat is an extension. Its owners are nature-loving retirees Peter and Carol.
I've always had an interest in nature, ornithology, birdwatching. We ended up in the Isle of Man.
Well, I suppose when we got here, you really could say to yourself, well, actually, we could do something really special here.
We were able to set up a nature reserve.
At the heart of their nature reserve, they've built a spectacular home where they can take in everything they've created.
Hey.
Hi, Damion. Nice to meet you.
You too. How are you doing, Carol?
Hi.
Lovely to meet you.
Welcome to Sarkville.
What an incredible house.
Thank you. Yes, we're very proud of it. We didn't want a huge cathedral. We wanted something discreet.
It then looks over all of the nature reserve. Not a clear day, but you can see Island from the house.
It almost feels like someone's just taken a great big broom and swept all of the stones into a big pile, and then you've started to carve into it and form your house.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
I don't think I've ever seen such a subtle, delicate, textural, more appropriate use of materials.
Oh, well, that's because a lot of this stone came from that lake that's down there.
This isn't just a home for Peter and Carol. They wanted the wildlife to move in too. The natural stone cladding is rough and deliberately littered with crevices designed to be inhabited by moss, birds and insects.
The bees have already started making nests in there.
So not content with sharing your land with nature, you actually want to share your house with nature as well.
Yes. I mean, all are welcome here. How long they stay is dependent on
them
and their predators. The house must fit in with the land, not the other way around, as if it's been here for 100 years.
The RIBA judges heaped praise on this excellent response to the landscape, commending the use of local material and the way it seems moulded into the hillside. They marvelled at the horizontal slot window and the thick concrete walls that provide a sheltered and embracing experience inside. The house is designed to be invisible to passers-by. The roof is level with the road and covered in grass. Both the bedrooms are located on the lower ground floor. The living area and kitchen diner are given pride of place with panoramic views over the land. A staircase library connects each floor with a glazed study built into the roof and a garage against the road.
Wow, incredible door. Love the scale of it, isn't it? It's magnificent. And incredible view.
On entering this building at living room level, everything seems bigger and expansive. The long ribbon window offers a mesmerizing panorama of landscape. At one end, a picture window frames the horizon. Who wouldn't want to enjoy that?
It's almost like I've stepped inside and I've immediately stepped outside again.
Yes, it is, yeah.
And we were after a little bit of peace and quiet as well.
I think you've got a little bit more than a little bit of peace and quiet.
It's certainly quiet.
Yeah.
I think this is the best bird hide I've ever been in. Sweeping views over these sweeping hills. It's absolutely fantastic.
Restorative retreat has everything the soul, mind and body could possibly need. Beauty, tranquility, and a high-tech Japanese robo-grill.
I put in this teppanyaki plate. If you've been to a teppanyaki bar in a Japanese restaurant, they use spatulas like that and they cook things like prawns and they flick them at you. it's that sort of, this is my dream kitchen.
The oriental discipline of the kitchen is matched by a rigorous palette of materials here, limited to concrete, timber and brushed steel. It may be a local stone building on the outside, but indoors they couldn't find a lot of what they needed.
Building on the Isle of Man can be very expensive because a lot of things have to come from overseas. This huge piece of oak was brought over from England.
Because you don't have a lot of materials on your doorstep, because they're not commonly used, that puts another degree of complexity on the bill.
We couldn't get concrete at one time, could we?
Yes.
We did get it finished, albeit it was about a year late.
The project took just over 2 years to complete. Building a new home that appears as though it's nestled here for decades doesn't happen overnight.
You could be mistaken for thinking that it had been here for 100 years until you start to look at the architecture a little more deeply.
Yes.
And then you see the use of very contemporary materials like cork, that wonderful rusting metal trim around the window.
Yes.
They've used steel that deliberately ages and rusts with the weather. A sharp move by the architect, Will Foster, on what is an extremely exposed site.
You needed to make a building that could stick up for itself in this environment.
I've been blown over by the wind, so the corners of the building help deflect that wind. The windows are designed also to deal with the wind. So on the upper levels, there's no opening windows because you open them, they're gone. It does look bunker-like. It needs to survive. So we wanted to make a building that would stand the test of time, but more importantly, it would age gracefully with the landscape.
But inside, this house is rustic, comfortable and cosy. Its centrepiece is the atrium, with a double-storey library home to Peter's extensive collection of natural history books.
You know, surrounded by all this dark metal, the library could feel really dark and gloomy. But look, it doesn't. It's light and it's airy. And that's because of all of this perforated metal. It allows all the light to flood from below and rise from beneath, which means that I can sit here and read my book on sea slugs without even squinting.
The staircase is a thing of sculptural beauty. It took months to forge. The work was done in Somerset by specialist blacksmiths. Kyle and John worked together to bring the complex design to life.
It took 7 days to fit, and we worked from 5 in the morning till 12 o'clock at night, every night until we got it done. And then once we got the staircase in, we then realised that we still had the 5 tons of bookshelves to fit that were still having to get up through the house and up through the staircase that we'd already put in. It was a bit of a challenge the whole way through.
Peter and Carol set out to build a home in which to enjoy their retirement and share their love of nature. But what they've built is something their entire community can be a part of. They're now planning a visitor centre so local school children and eco-tourists can enjoy the reserve, with this extraordinary house at its centre.
To build a house that's in complete harmony with its environment, well, that's one thing. But by combining the forces of nature with the boldness of architecture, Peter and Carol have created a truly remarkable home.
So far, we've seen 2 houses that flex and fit to their setting. Only 3 more to go before we find out which of these remarkable homes gets shortlisted for House of the Year.
Sometimes the most powerful connections to things, to places, are the connections you can't see. The childhood ties that call you back home, for example. or a building that has echoes of the past woven into the very materials it's made from.
Our next long lister harks back a couple of 100 years to another time. It's hidden away in a sea of traditional brick-built streets, but it is ambiguous, enigmatic, made of wood.
Ooh, it's a bit of South London rustic.
This is South London House, dressed in strips of beautiful black timber. This time-travelling shed doesn't mimic its surroundings today, but as they would have been in the 19th century. It was designed by the history-loving architect Jonathan and his wife Catherine.
Well, this part of South London, there's a tradition of black stained timber boarded houses.
And that's typical of the style of houses that were generally around this area at that time?
Not something that every passerby would know, so Jonathan's provided a helpful explanation.
Hiya.
Hello.
Oh, hi.
Catherine.
Nice to meet you.
How are you, Jonathan? How are you? In the wall, just there, there's a photograph from...
1890.
Oh, yeah. But there she is. There's a lady wearing an apron, staring sort of almost quizzically at the camera, and a very, very large fencing panel next to the house.
Yep.
At a jaunty angle.
Which could have been about here.
Oh, yes.
I suspect that this house was an improvised house on a bit of land. It's not an official house, as it were.
Yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of those then. I mean, this would have been a timber frame building, wouldn't it?
Almost certainly.
And given the nearness of the shipyards all along the Thames.
Built by someone who was working in the
Yeah,
shipyard.
with some liberated timber.
Almost certainly, yeah.
Courtesy of Her Majesty's government. Yeah, there's a very clear, quite a poignant relationship then, isn't there, between this and this? You know, what you've done is a 21st century take on that, I suppose.
The RIBA judges praised South London House as a wonderful family home that improves the place it's in and, poetically, conjures memories of what was once here. The horseshoe-shaped ground floor is built around a courtyard garden. There's a pair of bedrooms at each end, with a kitchen and living area in the middle. A single attic room provides extra space for a living room and study. Outside may take inspiration from the past, but the inside open-plan layout is clearly of now. There are hypnotically calming Douglas fir joists and beautiful clean lines. South London House is a world away from the city outside.
Immediately, incredibly peaceful, you know. And here we are, in this little Eden. Those wildflower meadow roofs
They've really taken off.
Really rich and lush.
Yeah.
They're kind of little hats the building's wearing. Yeah.
It is. It's a kind of sanctuary for us.
Well, it is now. The headaches of building it have been largely forgotten, apart from the little reminders every now and then. The sewer in the courtyard, for example.
We have a public sewer crossing this site, which runs right through the middle of the site.
But no, there's a big round one there.
There's a big round one there.
Your own pet.
Our own pet sewer. We had to get a special permit to build over it, and we had to design all the foundations according to very specific constraints.
Aside from the sewer, Jonathan had to negotiate 5 separate party wall agreements. South London House is hemmed in on all sides by its neighbours, who closely eyed the builders as they worked, cutting steel reinforcement bar, sparks flying everywhere. Some more concerned than others.
The build was quite stressful because the yard is full of gas cylinders, which isn't the safest thing in the world.
All proper safety measures were adhered to, rest assured. This was a brownfield site. It's been transformed thanks to the clever, cranked layout of the building around that enclosed courtyard. This is really hard-working architecture that creates beauty out of almost nothing.
We managed to score stuff.
The bedroom is a delight.
Wowee, that's very nice. It is beautifully done. The joists, all of a piece, with a frame that runs around the building with that little shadow gap. It's a thing of love.
It's a very nice thing to lie in bed and look up at.
It is.
Absolutely, yeah. There's one room in which you need a beautiful ceiling. It's the bedroom.
Well, there you go. Yes, that makes absolute sense. Yeah.
And if there's one room that needs a beautiful view, it's the living room upstairs.
Oh, this is splendid.
It's our kind of chilling out space, I suppose.
Somewhere to rest, somewhere to enjoy the view over the churchyard. Just quite tranquil, isn't it?
Yeah, no television up here, just relaxing.
The wildflower meadow is very beautiful. It sits quite harmoniously with the pink of the pink campion, with the plastic chair on the roof. Oh, and a view down to the courtyard. That is terrific.
Its carefully framed views make South London House a place to enjoy the best of its surroundings, the green bits of a grey city.
There is a lot of sound medical research from the past 40 years that shows that being surrounded by trees, with a view of trees, is good for you. It's good for your well-being, both physical and psychological. It's also a fact that being able to sit and drink lemon and ginger tea while looking at a wildflower meadow reduces the blood pressure by 28%. I just made that bit up.
The bit about the blood pressure, that is. The tree bit is true.
So, this new house sits on the site of an old one that was here 100 or so years ago, which is now long gone, but of which perhaps some stain, some memory remains. This house was probably built by, almost certainly lived in, by people who worked in the shipyards here. Jonathan and Catherine enjoy that sense of history, that contact. They relish in this new house that reverberation to the history of this place. There are some places that if I were to lead you there blindfold and then show you the buildings and what they were made of, you would instantly know where you were. Bath stone houses, the red bricks of Manchester, the earthy cob of Devon, the granite of Aberdeen, and all of these materials speak of their place. And so making houses out of what can be dug up from the earth connects a building to its surroundings.
Our next longlister has dug deep to connect to its beautiful setting in Hampshire. Damion has travelled to see it.
Oh, now, wasn't expecting that.
This is Hampshire House, covered in locally sourced flint. Home to 3 generations of the same family, this house is built on a grand scale. But it's broken up into neat, boxy sections that fracture its size and settle it into the trees.
So it really feels like it's embedded back in.
It was designed by the architects Neil McCloud and Joanna Karatzas.
Joanna, great to meet you. Great to meet you. It's incredible. I mean, driving down there, the large flint wall, it almost feels quite medieval, but you turn the corner and it's just like, wow, it's a whole different experience, isn't it?
This is the entrance courtyard where you're welcomed into the house.
I love as well with the flint, the level of craftsmanship is incredible.
Yes, so flint was important.
So important that a whopping 60 tons of it was used to dress Hampshire House from top to bottom.
Flint is very local to the area. You find it in the fields, you find it below your feet. You know, as the tractors go through and plough a field, they put all the flints to one side in a big heap. So a lot of them are actually found like that and used in construction.
You see a load of architects in black polo necks picking them up.
Yes, you do sometimes.
Along with the flint, they've used Purbeck stone from the neighbouring county of Dorset in the most beautiful way.
In every bed of the stone, it changes in colour from the top of the bed to the bottom of the bed. So we were able to use it in the building to show the layers of the ground.
So you extracted the stone from the quarry and kept it in the same order, and you can see on the corner here. I mean, it's a wonderful effect.
It's not just the materials that tie the house to its setting. It is literally part of the place. The building's dug into the hill. At the back of the house are the quieter spaces, a granny annex, library and office, plus a double-height swimming pool. At the centre of the home is a double-height kitchen, a general living area and a master bedroom. There's a family block with a TV room and kids' bedrooms above, and there are guest rooms with a formal living and dining area below. It might appear as a stone fortress from outside. Inside, it's altogether softer and woodier.
Oh, lovely oak panelling.
The kitchen is a world of timber all of its own.
Oh, wow. This is incredible. The height, the volume, it's spectacular. I don't know whether I should be chopping vegetables or kneeling down to pray. It's got that sort of a wonderful, uplifting, light-filled chapel feel about it. The timber work and the joinery in this room is exceptional. You can look up through here, you can see the joists flying off in 3 different directions. I mean, this is clever stuff.
The oak ceilings tie together the various parts of the house. So the joists were set out to follow the directions of the views and the relationship to each room.
The architects tailored Hampshire House for 3 generations of occupants by designing it as a series of smaller mini homes that each generation can live in independently.
You could close down that and that and that and that and just live in that little cube there. They have their bedroom upstairs, they have the kitchen, they have the family room with a dining table. So you can live in that small bit of the house, and it's meant to be something that feels as though it's the right size for whatever group of people is in it.
Ingenious. The RIBA said this home radiates tranquility in a way that should be celebrated and commended. The judges also praised Hampshire House for the use of comforting, natural materials and were hugely impressed with the building that connected to the immediate landscape.
We designed the openings to be as large as possible to bring you out into the landscape, or you bring the landscape into the room.
And if you were going to pick a room to have as your main bedroom, then this is it, isn't it? Because, I mean, look at this.
The views are subtly enhanced thanks to a clever design.
By tapering these columns out from the back to a fine point, it means that when you're inside the room, they're not obstructing your view of the wonderful landscape, and they let the sunlight just flood into the room.
The precision building frames were formed from concrete poured off-site, with local sand added to the mix to help it match the warm grey Purbeck stone around it.
There are few houses that connect with its surroundings like this one. From its locally sourced materials to its pavilion-like structures which reach into the landscape and pull you in. For Neil, Joanna, and all of the craftsmen involved, this house is a heartfelt love letter to Hampshire.
There's only one more house to see, one more, which responds imaginatively to its surroundings, before we find out which the RIBA judges have shortlisted for House of the Year. Beautiful landscape, isn't it? Although putting up a house somewhere like this, putting up something extraordinary in a place like this comes with its own set of challenges. For example, how do you make sure that whatever you put into it feels appropriate, doesn't trash the place?
Michelle has travelled to see our next remarkable house on the Isle of Skye. Beautiful, windswept, craggy mountains, wide lochs, sweeping expanses of unending coastline. Any new building would do well to fit into this extraordinary landscape.
Okay, now this is exciting.
This is Black House, and it beds in beautifully. It's wrapped in a Siberian larch cloak that connects it to the shadows of its setting. Although its dark and brooding presence contains an interior that is the very opposite. Black House has been sunk into a natural hollow in the rock. You enter through a small hallway on the upper floor, where there are 2 bedrooms and a study, surrounding a light-filled stairwell. The dramatic view of the sea opens up on the lower floor with an open-plan kitchen diner and a large living space cantilevered out over the rocky foreshore. The owners, Julian and Delia, first visited Skye over 30 years ago, and they've been coming back ever since.
I like to be out in the weather. And I just love the mountains, and the hills here are just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it just felt magical the minute we came down here.
They decided to retire here from London and build a place to enjoy the magical craggy setting they love so much.
Hello. So nice to meet you. And it's extraordinary. Suddenly this whole house really kind of opens up for me, echoing this kind of dark, massive rock that's all around us.
Yeah. Around here there's interesting, structures, interesting shapes, but really all the drama is at the front of the building, so we want to have the most emphasis on that.
You get a kind of wow when you see how close you are to the sea.
Come in.
Suspended above the waters, the interior is all serene. The kitchen steps down to the living area, following the rocky slope of the shore, to deliver an incredible view.
That is absolutely epic. I mean, there's no other word for it, is there?
It's pretty special. Every day I come down and have the same experience. It is astonishing.
The view is the point of this house.
It's completely sort of unfettered connection with outside. I mean, this window is absolutely enormous, but all the detailing is so sort of skinny and discreet. Yeah. What's it like in a storm?
It feels rather wonderful, being as if you're at the front of a ship or something, I suppose.
Yeah. When it's wild outside and you've got the stove on, and it's nice and warm in here, and it's just the contrast is very nice.
Not so nice, though, for the builder, Frankie Wallace.
Weather was against it quite a lot of the time. Boys were actually getting saturated, on days when they were painting it. A few times we had to replace some of the insulation because once that was soaked through, that was it, you know what I mean?
One day I came down here and one of the builders who was doing the painting on the outside had a full survival suit, such as you'd wear, on the high seas or something. Was out there painting it, still getting soaked, but, was giving it a go.
That is dedication.
It really was, yeah. Yeah, we watched him from the car.
The finished house is protected from the raging wind and rain, partly because it's sunk down. In order to lower the house 4.5 metres, 1,200 tons of rock had to be broken up with a hydraulic hammer and moved off-site. That cost over £50,000, far more than they expected.
The contingency went on day one, so that was kind of rock breaking.
So your money buffer that you kind of got just in case.
Yes,
all gone.
All gone.
Right at the beginning.
I've forgotten all the difficulties. I've repressed them. I will possibly wake up screaming in the night at times, thinking about these terrible things that happened.
Because until they started breaking rock, they actually didn't know how much and how solid and what the extent of it was. And then your father died with suspiciously good timing. I'm not sure if you can say that.
He was 92, but no, it was just a small amount of money, which just came in when it was necessary. So that was fantastic. Because in a sense, when you retire, there's no more money. It's not like you've got a great earning potential. You can't increase the pot that you have. So it's pretty worrying.
It was worth all that worry. The judges complimented Black House on its strong connection with the shoreline, its breathtaking views across the water, and the minimal interior, which upstairs is enriched by objects that Julian and Delia have collected over the years on their regular trips to South America.
The design was basically had in mind the fact we had lots of things that we wanted to show off. And we wanted to have them around so we could enjoy them rather than put them in a cupboard somewhere.
Well, it's kind of the point of home, isn't it? At this point in life, that you're surrounded by almost like they're like the talismans of your life, aren't they? This is your story.
Yes. You know, there's a history to every object. We kind of know where it came from or who gave it to us.
This isn't just a place for Julian and Delia to remember their past lives, but to enjoy today and tomorrow in the moment, in whichever room they find themselves. But burying 2 stories into a void dug from the rock wasn't easy. Planning is very restrictive in this sensitive area, as the architect Laura Stevens knows.
It's quite rare to build a 2-storey building. There isn't really a strong precedent for it in this area. Sinking the bulk of the building down behind the rock, it was the least impact on the site.
Good for the surroundings, good for the neighbours, who had some initial concerns.
First impressions as it was going up was it was very dominant. In fact, the nickname locally was the Death Star because it was this big black thing. But because it's low down, it doesn't really dominate us. And in fact, by planting trees, we don't even see it.
The beauty of this building is that it's an elegant, modern home, but set within an ancient landscape, such that it really adds to the environment instead of competing with it.
There you have it. 5 incredible homes that all respond to where they are in the most breathtaking of ways. So which of them will the RIBA judges put through to the shortlist?
Earl's Court House, the concrete and glass chameleon, easy to miss but hard to forget. Restorative rural retreat, a supersized stone bird hide, home to creatures great and small. South London House, a poetic solution to a sensitive urban plot. Hampshire House, a modernist mansion with generous views on a grand scale. And Black House, a shelter on the shoreline that's almost as dramatic as the view. The chair of the RIBA's judging panel, John Pardee,
Very beautiful.
can tell us about the first house to make it onto the shortlist.
So this category is all about context. So what have you shortlisted for it?
This is the restorative rural retreat.
In the Isle of Man?
In the Isle of Man.
Restorative because it restores well-being, or because
Restores well-being, and they are restoring nature at the same time.
Why does this make the shortlist?
I think this was an exceptional building, beautifully done, very passionate, both clients and architects. This is all about hunkering down, building on the site, and just making something very contemporary out of lumps of rock and bits of concrete.
Yeah.
And a few bits of metal. And it's got this fabulous set of staircases, which are some of the most beautiful I've seen for years. Fabulous.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
Well done. That's brilliant. I'm really pleased.
I am over the moon!
So, restorative retreat is on the shortlist, but there's room for another one.
So what's this project that you've shortlisted?
This is the Black House on the Isle of Skye.
Why shortlist this project?
What a landscape. It was fabulous. It just fits, just by using the right materials. So it's a box, but it's a box with a few little tricks. You get that wonderful change from a black, slightly rough carapace. And you walk in and it's smooth and it's white and it's abstract. And that was a lovely contrast. So the key moment in this building is when you go down and then that room. Just that room with that view straight out. And you're catapulted out as if you're falling in the water. And you could sit there forever. That is a special space.
That's really surprising. Well done.
Oh my goodness. I just can't believe it. Because I look at the list of the other houses, I've seen other houses, and I'm just like my heroes.
So the competition continues, with restorative retreat and Black House added to the shortlist. But there's room for 3 more before we find out who has won House of the Year 2019.
Sometimes the idea of standing out can be less than outstanding. Equally, to blend in, to camouflage yourself into a landscape can sometimes be a cop-out. And the homes you've just seen, in fact, all sit quite proudly in their surroundings, and yet they all also speak softly but clearly of the need to belong. And they can all pack a punch when called on to defend their position. Ultimately, all great architecture can and should enhance where it is and enrich our understanding of a place. So let's have more of it.
Next time, we'll be looking at houses that are down to earth.
This space is incredible. What was the budget?
350,000. Budget isn't a barrier to creating interesting spaces.
Wow, very simple and elegant.
These are plain-speaking, simple, honest homes. The sort of houses you'd want to go to the pub for a drink with. There are many wonderful homes in the UK, from cottages to bungalows, mansions to mud huts. They come in all shapes and sizes. But only one stands apart from all the others. One is mightier than the rest.
Once again, we're nosing around the incredible buildings which are in the running for this year's House of the Year prize.
The staircases all seem to be free-flying, like they do in Harry Potter.
So far, we've seen some extraordinary experimental homes.
It's confusing, but it's beautiful. And ultimately, it's your heart that tells you.
And some remarkable homes which stitch themselves into their surroundings.
It's hidden behind the wall here.
I like that. I don't want a flashy, sock-it-to-you house.
In today's episode, we're looking at a category of houses that are all down to earth.
We knew we could create interesting spaces using very basic building materials.
At the end of the episode, we'll find out which of the spectacular houses on the long list have been shortlisted by the judges from the Royal Institute of British Architects.
You know it when you walk up to this building. You just know it.
And at the end of the series, we'll learn which of these has won the 2019 House of the Year award.
So get ready for some serious eye candy. And shoes off, please.
We're halfway through our grand tour of this year's long-listed houses. So far, 4 buildings have made it onto the shortlist. Nithurst Farm, an essay in historical references that's also a progressive family home. The small but perfectly formed pocket house. The restorative rural retreat which hunkers down into its wild setting. And the dramatic shadowy black house on the Isle of Skye.
That's really surprising. Well done. Oh my goodness.
This time we're looking at 5 more houses from the long list, all down to earth, all delightful company.
These are plain-speaking, simple, honest homes. The sort of houses you'd want to go to the pub for a drink with and play darts. They are quietly spoken. But don't let that fool you. These are also brave homes that take risks. They make bold choices, but never just for the sake of showing off.
Looking around these beautiful homes with me are the architect Damion Burrows.
This is no ordinary hallway.
And the design expert Michelle Ogundehin.
Okay, now this is exciting.
You know, anyone can make fabulous food if you start with the finest ingredients: caviar, lobster, truffles. But of course, the sign of a great chef is that they can rustle up something from leftovers. And so it is with houses as well. I mean, if you can take the lowliest of ingredients, like basic bog standard bricks and sheet metal, and make out of them a beautiful House of the Year contender, then you are an absolute master of your materials.
Hungry to see our first down-to-earth house, Damion is in County Down, Northern Ireland. A place of rolling greenery dotted with farms. But one of these barny buildings isn't what it seems. This is House Lessons. An L-shaped building of perfectly pitched zinc roofs over cool concrete blockwork, built next to an existing barn.
Hi. Hi, Devon. How are you?
Well.
It was the work of architect Kieran McGonigal.
When you're coming down from the road, you could almost mistake it for being an agricultural building.
That was the intention. The existing barn is basically corrugated steel on a masonry base, and the client came to us and they knew they wanted to retain the barn and to add a building onto the site which complemented the barn. So it was to be reference to the existing barn, but different. After all, it's a house, it's not a barn.
Which is clear from the interiors, where you'll find a lesson in grey minimalism, all geared around the views. The house is divided into sleeping and living zones. In the living, there's a generous double-height sitting room with an open-plan kitchen and pantry tucked away. Beyond this, there's a snug. Above the pantry, there's a study with a gallery. Across the hallway is the sleeping block, also double height. There are 3 bedrooms of equal size looking out onto a courtyard. Between them is the only bathroom. There's no second floor to speak of, so you enter into a main space with a lot of ceiling.
Oh, Kieran, this space is incredible. You just don't expect this from outside. You've just got this wonderful open space. It's so uplifting.
Yes, the scale of the space kind of takes your breath away when you first come into it. We wanted tall spaces and we wanted volume. We wanted lots of space and light.
The RIBA judges admired this as an unfussy but sophisticated home with expansive living spaces. Kieran's even squeezed in a mezzanine office with a clever pantry below. Continue a few steps beyond that, and you're in the snug.
The feel is very cosy, it's very intimate, but still got this great height.
It's meant to be an evening room, so this is at the west side of the house and gets the evening sun through the windows, but we also have a roof light getting morning sun, so it can be used in the morning as well.
The huge volumes have been broken up with one horizontal line that runs around the entire house, white above, grey below, to give the rooms a familiar scale and avoid any whiff of the art gallery. This place is a great achievement, considering it cost about £1,400 a square metre. That's less than half the cost of the average top-end self-build. To do this, Kieran put a lot of thought into what to build the house from.
We knew we could create interesting spaces using very basic building materials. These bricks, they are the cheapest bricks we could find. They're a concrete brick.
That's clever stuff, because concrete bricks, they're not even meant to be seen. They're meant to be sort of used out of sight or below ground.
Kieran's made inexpensive materials look high-end by finishing them beautifully, with flush mortar joints and careful painting, which has allowed him to spend the real money on keeping the rain out. The zinc roof is magnificently crafted, though the glazing is mainly big fixed panes of glass with occasional openers for ventilation, cheaper than bifold doors.
The views outside to the green landscape were very important. And we recessed the frames into the walls at the sides so that the view was increased, but also that from the outside, the windows appeared like barn doors.
Those big windows, The high, barn-like ceilings are everywhere throughout the house.
This is no ordinary hallway. I mean, it's the ceiling height, the way that it just explodes up. And this wonderful Dayton line that just travels all the way down.
And into 3 identical and modestly sized bedrooms.
They're small. They're not generous at all. But we have created a large-scale window here to the garden, to the courtyard, which gives a feeling of a spacious room. It makes the room feel twice the size.
The couple who commissioned this house are Sylvia and Michael, who were looking to build a new home where their grown-up children could come back to and stay.
We lived in a large Victorian house and we wanted to downscale. So the brief then with Kieran was to something modest, with modest bedroom quarters.
The identical rooms, with no one master bedroom, comes from Sylvia's democratic approach to sleeping arrangements.
I was aware that the children would have left home by the time we had built the house, and I wanted to make sure that the house welcomed them back, that they weren't coming to a tiny little box room, that they were coming to a bedroom that was the same size as a bedroom they would have had if they'd been permanent residents.
Each bedroom is fiercely identical. They even have to share the only bathroom in the house. Increasingly rare in the age of the ensuite.
Sylvia, why would you not want an ensuite? Why would you want to fight with your daughter for the bathroom in the morning?
I think en-suites are more cleaning, and why would you be bothered? So to just keep it with the one bathroom, that's really all you need. And you can shout at your daughter to get out of the bathroom.
Yeah.
In house lessons, Kieran demonstrates that architecture can work really hard for the money.
A house like this takes a lot of work. How personally invested have you been in this?
Very personally invested. We had to work very, very hard to deliver this building at an affordable price. And when budget is a constraint, that isn't necessarily a barrier to creating interesting spaces.
House Lessons makes the everyday magical. Grounded in its rural setting, but with a soaring heart and an ambitious attention to detail.
Making great architecture doesn't have to cost the earth, and nor should it. And this house proves that perfectly.
So far, we've seen one down-to-earth house, and there are 4 more to go before we find out which have made the shortlist for House of the Year 2019.
The peg tiles just wrap around the whole building.
Like a little animal there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like an armadillo, as I say.
Yeah, sticking out, yeah. What is it about agricultural buildings, eh? I love them. I like their simplicity, their honesty, the fact that they're so well detailed to keep the rain out and the animals in. So it's not surprising that so many architects are inspired by them.
That's what's happened with our next building on the long list, deep in rural Northamptonshire, where down-to-earth farm buildings have inspired an architectural marvel. There are 2 types of farmhouse in this world. Those that belong to hard-working sons of the earth, and those that belong to, what should we call them, gentlemen farmers? Those who decide that actually their home could be more architecturally aspiring. Somewhere like this. This is Hannington Farm. A rather epic rural home wrapped in the language of regional rubblestone, but which also reaches for the sky. A proper country farmhouse that's also architecturally ambitious and comfortably glamorous. It was commissioned by Giles and Polly, who have a long-standing connection to the area.
My family have owned farmland in this area for about 50 years. In fact, this was the last bit of ground that my father purchased before he died, and so it has some special resonance to me.
And it's an idyllic place to raise their 2 boys, Max and Jack.
It's beautiful, and we've always been outdoor people, and that's very much part of our life.
This rooted agricultural home is built in a Y-shaped plan. In the stem of the Y, there's a wing with a kitchen and living area at the front, and a formal living and dining room at the back, with the master bedroom suite upstairs. The triple-height atrium in the middle links everything, while at the rear is a functional wing with garage, storage and snug on the ground floor and kids' bedrooms upstairs. Then at the front left is a fun block with swimming pool, gym and wine room below and guest bedroom above. Morning.
Hi, Kevin.
Giles, yeah?
Nice to see you.
Polly.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
Very well.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, what a beautiful, beautiful place. This is in the
It
great
is.
kind of tradition of the grander farmhouse.
It was sort of designed as a collection of buildings that then joined together to produce the house.
Okay.
And this is the front entrance.
So that little knot in the middle of the...
Joins it together.
Assembling one house by connecting three apparently separate buildings is a respectful exercise in modesty, the opposite of a posh facade on a lowly hovel. This broken composition that imitates the vernacular, the regional materials and the traditional techniques all caught the eye of the RIBA judges, who particularly admired the historical use of differently sized stone-roofed tiles.
It's a very old traditional method with decreasing sizes of tiles as you go up. So actually during the build again, you're very excited when you first see the first couple of rows go up in quite big tiles. It happens quite quickly and then progressively it gets slower and slower towards the ridge.
Yeah.
But actually the finished result is magnificent.
It's like a fake perspective, isn't it?
It is.
It kind of melds back.
I love it. It's like an armoured effect. The peg tiles just wrap around the whole building.
Like a little animal there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like an armadillo, as I say.
Yeah, sticking out, yeah. Hannington Farm doesn't just execute traditional craftsmanship beautifully. It has some modern edge and flair, too. The chimneys are a noticeable flourish. You got some big chimneys?
We've got some very large chimneys, 3 of them.
Yeah.
It's not everybody's cup of tea, if I'm honest.
They've been called various
all sorts
things.
of things by friends.
From Battersea Power Station to sort of gun turrets.
Gun turrets, yeah.
I've always loved them.
I do now appreciate them.
The shapes were inspired partly by factory chimneys, mixing farmhouse earthiness with a bit of industrial grit. Head inside, though, and you need to leave your work boots at the door. The triple-height hallway that connects the different parts of the house at every level is fitting for a grand country house. Oh, yeah, that's something else. Oh, my goodness, you see right up to the ridge?
Yeah, all the way up.
Down a narrow glass corridor with views out to an industrial Japanese garden, you find another remarkable volume, the living room. Oh, this is big. Wow. I think this is magnificent.
Thank you. We love this room.
I bet you blinking well do.
And with the double height, we get a very large Christmas tree in here.
Yeah,
straight up the middle.
You could hold church services in here,
Well,
you know.
Possibly.
Praise be, because this is a home that tends to the spirit, mind and body too. There are too many choices. Beautiful as it is, I think I could live without one of those. I could certainly live without one of those. Not my thing at all. However, I want one of these. This is a gym for the soul. Although drink with due care and attention here, because this house defies the rule of gravity in places. The stairs appear to hover in mid-air. The staircases all seem to be free-flying.
Yeah.
Like they do in Harry Potter. You know, nothing's fixed.
I imagined it was going to wobble when I first walked up it.
It doesn't.
But it doesn't.
No, this is a magical thing. What holds these up is the wizardry of steel. And there's more magic and delight to explore. From the small shadows cast by the rhythmical patterns of the windows in the corridor to the surprisingly large master bedroom on the top floor. Oh, this is big. It's lovely. It's a suite. It's an apartment. Oh, it's a house. Because it's got another floor. It's got a mezzanine.
It has got a mezzanine, making the most of the height.
What happens up there?
Well, it's actually more of a sort of reading space, quite quiet.
Tiny
It looks
fishing
it looks
flies.
over the northern aspect of the house, so over the deer fields and that sort of stuff.
How lovely.
Yeah, and then we've got a great view to wake up to.
Great view. Again, just slightly shuttered by the
oak.
The oak.
As well as steel, this house makes use of one other modern material to help form these big spaces. Cross-laminated timber, or CLT. These are effectively super strong slabs of wood made up from lots of different layers like plywood, each layer glued down at right angles to the previous for strength. It was James Gorst, their architect, who chose it.
The reason for using CLT, quite apart from the fact it's very, very solid and it's green and it's sustainable, is you get a watertight structure up very, very quickly. And that means your electricians can move in, your plumbers, your plasterers.
That was the plan. But bad weather meant there was a series of knock-on delays. Giles and Polly couldn't wait and moved into the house before it was finished in the middle of winter.
We actually moved in 7 months before it completely finished, and they had this barn ready for us to move into. And so we lived above it through the final months of the build. The cantilever corridor became known as the Walk of Shame, quite embarrassingly.
Because?
Because, I sort of got bored with having to get fully clothed and everything else to go along and see the boys and stuff in the morning, so I used to just wander along in my boxer shorts. That often coincided with the arrival of most of the guys working on site.
Gave them a quick wave every morning.
Yep.
That's certainly one way to motivate your workforce. Hannington Farm may seem big and grand, but this places it in a great tradition of deeply rooted, gentrified country homes. Like a Roman villa or French vineyard mansion, it connects Giles and Polly to the land their families have farmed for so long.
This place is the work of a master architect, skilled in taking the traditional and somehow reinventing it. And in so doing, what he's done with familiar materials is create also a new narrative for this building and for this place. And that narrative, which I love, is a sort of tease, which suggests somehow that nestling in amongst these complex shapes is one, or perhaps two, ancient old rustic structures that are still there.
So far, we've seen 2 no-nonsense but beautifully crafted buildings. There are 3 more to go before we find out which will make it onto the shortlist for House of the Year 2019.
We'd already done up 2 houses, so we'd learnt quite a lot.
I learned not to do plumbing.
Yes,
So that was it.
yes.
If you're like me, your home is cluttered and your brain's cluttered, so you can't even think straight. However, I do know of a building that's been designed as an antidote to this.
Our next down-to-earth longlister was created to provide an escape from the hustle and bustle of life. And Michelle Ogundehin has travelled to Devon to see it. This is Secular Retreat. It stands like a prehistoric stone structure on the hills, powerful but also elegant. It was designed as a holiday home for the public to rent by the celebrated Swiss architect Peter Zumthor. In a large communal space, guests can enjoy open-plan living on a single level. There are 2 wings with 5 bedrooms and a utility room. You'll have to check about their dog policy. The director of the company who commissioned this upmarket mini break spot is Mark Robinson.
Wow, so this is it.
Yeah.
The joy of this building is that it appears very simple.
The simplicity here is very much in how it sits on the landscape, how we've interacted with the landscape. I feel that people coming here are not interrupted by too many things makes a huge difference. I think the fact that it's very transparent, you can see the landscape pretty much around you as you move through the house, adds to our well-being. I think there's something about simplicity of materials, palette, views, that allows one just naturally to feel calmer.
There certainly is. Nothing fussy here, Secular Retreat is basically made from a single material, concrete. The RIBA admired how, on its high hilltop setting, this building so beautifully hunkers in, the solid materials suggesting that it might be there for generations to come. They were also awed by the lofty open-plan kitchen and living room.
I mean, it feels kind of monumental.
Like standing inside Stonehenge, surrounded by extraordinary textures.
I desperately want to kind of touch everything.
The surfaces, everything is about tactility, and the zinc surfaces and the American cherry and all these mixtures of different sort of materials and alongside the concrete.
And a floor covered with flagstones of all different shapes and sizes. Each piece was dug from a quarry, the edges neatened, and laid in the shape in which it came out at the architect Peter Zumthor's insistence.
When Peter made this first suggestion to me, it's like, you're crazy. Every piece a different shape, a different size, finding a quarry that would work with me took me 2 years. There's about 450 different shaped stones on this floor, everyone cut independently, so there's no repetition at all.
That sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah. It took us 13 months just to lay the floor.
Is it worth it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. For me, it's right. It fits with the odd shape of the building.
The monumental and dark floor seems to root itself to the ground, although the roof apparently floats off the columns, defying gravity. The building stretches itself up and out, providing plenty of opportunity to stretch the mind and escape, say, to the bedroom wing.
There could be a party going on out there, but with the thickness of these walls and the door, once you shut it, you could be in your own private cocoon.
This house offers many delightfully quiet experiences, whether relaxing in a wooden bath overlooking the exquisite landscape, or sat in peace at a writing desk working on that novel. But it's only when guests fill this house that the power of the secular retreat is truly felt.
When we arrived, all I could hear for the first hour was people just going, and it's sort of this slow ratcheting down of life. The building calms you down, makes you less anxious, makes you appreciate the world in a really simple way.
It was anything but simple to build this contemplative haven, though. The concrete frame wasn't made by pumping and pouring by machine. It was crafted by hand. A process watched over by the project architect, Ian Bramwell.
All of the walls around the sort of two wings of the house are constructed from round concrete. It's a really dry mix of concrete that is poured into formwork and then rammed down and compacted. It's not a simple process.
Making the concrete walls this way was intended to give the building character. It did take the builders a while to do it.
I think I was there for like a year doing this. There were some times I really did wonder what I was doing there, yeah.
I'm not sure he was the only one. Not only did the concrete have to be rammed by hand, none of the layers were meant to look the same, as the contractor Simon Cannon soon found out.
But when we did our first pour, which was this piece here actually, and we were really pleased that we'd managed to get this really clean, sharp line through here. But it turned out the next day that the architect was less than pleased with that. So subsequently we had to make this joint a little bit more wavy because he wanted a more organic line to it. So my pride turned to disappointment a bit there.
Secular Retreat is a building that has wowed its visitors, although its design and relative exclusivity have got locals talking.
So you thought it was a cult?
Well,
Are you the one that started
no.
the rumour of the cult?
No.
I think actually it's quite spectacular, and anything that attracts people to the village, and it's great. It's lovely.
I think the bottom line was as long as people come there who, in quotes, behave themselves and spend a lot of money in the community, then
Well, if they do that, they don't
do.
necessarily have to behave themselves.
Well,
I love this house. It has a lightness and delicacy to it, basically because it's made by hand with an incredible attention to detail.
The choice of materials that you use to build your house with probably says as much about you as the clothes you put on in the morning. So, for example, some of us can carry off that crumpled linen look. Others really need to put on a silk shirt and tie and a merino wool suit to complete the look. Some of us, yet again, look good in anything.
Our next down-to-earth house on the long list is all the better for wearing nothing fancy. This is the Max Fordham house, dressed simply in larch cladding and brick. It's plain-speaking, practical architecture at its best. Everything here has a functional purpose. These larch strips in the windows prevent overlooking, but allow views out and light in. Inside, everything is pared back and functional, but perfectly suited to the needs of its resident. The efficient owner is the renowned engineer Max Fordham, who has devoted his working life to helping buildings save energy.
I do think that the message has got to get over to the world to build airtight buildings.
And buildings that are airtight are energy efficient, which was a key part of the design for both Max and his architect, Justin Beer.
Our buildings are taking about 40% of the total energy that is used by the UK, and a large proportion of that is going into houses. Max often makes the point that fossil fuels were laid down for 4 billion years at the rate of 1 gram a second. We're burning that fossil fuel now at the rate of 5,000 tonnes per second. That is totally unsustainable.
So Max and Justin have built a home that is determined not to use any fossil fuel. A house that doesn't have normal heating. No boiler, no radiators, no underfloor heating, not even a roaring open fire.
Portcullis front door.
Just coming.
Oh, thanks, Max. Hiya. How are you? Justin, how are you?
Hi, Kevin.
Good. Come on out.
The brief was that on a freezing, overcast day, the heat loss would be met, more or less, by people's metabolism in the building.
Yeah.
And electricity consumption.
So
that
basically,
has to be
the
understood.
electric lights and the human beings heat the house.
Yeah,
Yes.
and refrigerator and things like
Yeah,
that.
other bits and bobs
Visit,
around.
visit
Yeah.
sun when it's available, to be near to zero energy as possible.
Wow, this is more like it. Inside this cutting-edge home, on the ground floor there's a large kitchen and living room. On the first floor there's a master bedroom and guest room. And at the top of the house, a further bedroom and Max's study. The RIBA judges admired how carefully this unpretentious house fitted into the street, hiding its extra upper level by setting it back. Simple, considered and respectful outside, just as pared back and beautiful within.
This is lovely.
The judges also commended the thought that had gone into how it would work for its elderly resident, down to the smallest details, like the floor.
I'm pleased to see cork flooring, such a welcome change from polished concrete.
And softer, that's the key thing. As we get older, our bones become more brittle. Polished concrete can be lethal. This has a softness, and that's partly because underneath the cork there's a thin layer of wood fibre insulation, so it's like a little sponge.
This is an eco-friendly, super-insulated home that healthily cushions and protects in all kinds of ways to make Max's life as easy as possible as he advances through his 80s. As we get old, it helps that rooms are really well lit. But the glass needed to provide this is the natural enemy of energy efficiency, because windows leak heat.
I know how you've railed against heat loss through glass, but this is very light and actually very, very well glazed.
Well, obviously windows are necessary.
Yeah.
But Justin has used the fewest number of windows possible, while cleverly ensuring rooms are bright and beautifully lit. Although Max would still have preferred slightly less glass.
I mean, I would have closed it off there.
Okay. Right, yeah, sure. But...
And I think I still would have.
Most modern architects are thinking, well, how can I get more and more glass in? Not seriously thinking about the consequences. How do I make it even more sort of, you know, floating on air? Some people would say that's pushing a boundary. Others would say, well, it's what we've been saying for a long time.
Yeah, there's a sort of efficiency about this building and an expediency about it. A no-nonsense approach, and and that sort of, I suspect, comes from your important belief in efficiency.
Yes, I think that's right.
Efficiency drives the aesthetic of this place. Upstairs, Max's office is bright and ordered. The bedrooms are crisply Scandinavian. But Max's greatest triumph over wastage is his invention for the windows. Insulated sliding shutters designed to reduce heat loss.
So every window in the house has a shutter, more or less? Is that how it works?
Yes, yeah, every window.
Do you just slide them across, or how do they work?
When it gets dark in winter, this shutter should operate. Oops.
By itself, just automatically closes. That's the idea?
If there's nobody in the house, the shutters close.
The genius of these shutters is they could be adapted and fitted to existing poorly glazed homes to transform older social housing, listed buildings, all our homes, to save energy and the planet. Max's no-frills home doesn't just save energy. Its heat exchanger ventilation system also shields its occupants from the pollution outside.
The filters are in here. That is all the filthy black particulates from car engines and lorry engines and other things that are filtered out of the air before it arrives in the building.
Max Fordham House is a supremely practical piece of architecture, one that grapples with pressing problems, solving them for the potential benefit of us all. It's a striking achievement by a remarkable man.
It represents a really powerful idea, one man's lifetime of trying to effect change in the built environment, a world of experimentation and a dedication towards low-energy, passive house living. Now, we are in an age of incontrovertible climate change, and it seems to me that the beauty of this place is magnified by the fact that its time has come. We have only one more exquisite home to see from this year's long list before we find out which the RIBA judges have shortlisted for House of the Year. If you're not rolling in money, but you've still got the ambition to build a piece of sustainable, modern architecture, then you have to be smart. You have to be patient. You need to be imaginative to see the potential in plots or locations that most of us would consider undesirable.
Our next grounded house on the long list was built on the footprint of a couple of run-down old sheds. Michelle has travelled to see it hidden away in the beautiful South Downs National Park. This is Hill House Passive House. Two striking, elegant wooden buildings clad in red cedar. The RIBA judges loved the clear, elegant, modern vision for this building, particularly the tranquil living space, lit with carefully placed roof lights and windows. It was designed by the architect Charles Malloy for his wife, Hannah, and their 3 children.
We've been looking for land for a while.
The site here was occupied by some dilapidated chicken sheds, which when I passed, I thought it was a good opportunity to put a house on.
When I saw this, I was very excited.
So, on the footprint of these buildings, Charles and Hannah built their new home.
So these are the new chicken sheds.
That doesn't sound very glamorous. Was that your inspiration?
Pretty much. So the form is similar in as much as 2 pitch roof structures.
Presumably these are slightly bigger than chicken sheds as well.
Chickens don't need, they don't need so much head height. So yeah, we've gone up quite a bit higher.
Hill House Passive House has 2 wings. In the first, a living room that flows into a dining and kitchen area. Tucked behind this is an entrance hall and a family bathroom. In the next wing, there's a master bedroom with an ensuite, and along a corridor, bedrooms for their 3 children. Charles and Hannah weren't just their own clients for this remarkable project. They self-built it as well.
We couldn't have afforded to have a main contractor to build it for us, so we did it very much as a self-build, but employing a lot of the subcontractors ourselves and managing them ourselves.
We'd already done up 2 houses before this build, so we'd learnt quite a lot.
I learned not to do plumbing.
Yeah.
So that was it.
So know your limits.
Yeah.
Know your limits.
Okay.
Very wise. But Charles and Hannah did manage to pull together an elegant interior. The open-plan kitchen connected to an intimate living room is a sleek, minimal joy.
Beautifully smooth, and the plywood and the cabinetry. And it just all flows quite naturally, one into the other. But I can imagine you could sit here and you could still see all the way through.
Yes, yeah, so it's not a big sprawling open plan area. There's definition through the cabinetry in the middle.
It is super kind of clean and spare and quite sort of lean in terms of decor here.
We've always gone for the clean white walls, bit of colour somewhere, but the colour mainly coming from our belongings. It's kind of how we like to live.
Yeah, kind of a pared back approach.
It certainly is. Travelling through the kitchen and down a gleaming white corridor that connects the 2 wings is a wonderfully calming experience.
I love these little skylights through. That's kind of beautiful ways of sneaking in all this extra sunlight. That sort of paints the walls for you, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Off the long corridor of the sleeping wing are the 3 bedrooms.
So this is our youngest bedroom.
And nice, all with access to outside as well.
Yeah, so they've all got full height glazed doors.
They're super insulated triple glazed doors to keep the heat in. Hill House Passive House is, as the name suggests, a passive house, which means it uses very little energy for heating and cooling. To achieve that, the inside of the home had to be super insulated and wrapped in a special membrane to maintain airtightness. It's usually a specialist job, but Charles bravely took on the work himself with a university friend, Ashley.
Biggest challenge is possibly not knowing how to do something. I'm sure there's better ways of wrapping the inside of a house with the membrane. You don't want to have to start taking pieces of the wall down afterwards to try and find out where you're losing air through the house. So Charles and I were quite chuffed about the fact that what we had done was meeting passive house standards, seen as for both of us, it was our first attempt.
Even more remarkably, this glorious building was put up for only £250,000.
Even with a modest budget, you can still be bold. By having a vision, really understanding the site, getting involved, anything is possible.
So, 5 down-to-earth houses, unfussy and elegant. The question is, which of these remarkable homes will the judges shortlist for House of the Year? Will it be House Lessons, an exquisite, rigorous home masquerading as a couple of Northern Irish barns? Hannington Farm, a juxtaposition of 3 buildings in the time-honoured tradition of the gentrified farmhouse. Secular Retreat, a concrete, chill-out modern Stonehenge you can rent by the day. Max Fordham House, a no-nonsense home on a mission to save the planet. Or finally, Hill House Passive House, a pared-back eco-home that is just enough for its young family. The architect John Pardee is the chair of this year's judges.
So, John, in this down-to-earth category, what have you shortlisted?
Well, it has to be the secular retreat down in Devon.
It's designed by Peter Sumtor, who's like world-class.
And you know it when you walk up to this building. You just know it. The materials, the atmosphere. And it's made of one thing, pretty much. It's buttery, lovely concrete. So it's very experiential. The posh word that he would use is phenomenology.
I think the word experiential is long enough.
I cannot fault this as a house, as a work of architecture. It's just world class.
Wow, that was amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Well, you know, we tried. We tried very hard.
For a very long time as well.
Yes. So, yeah.
Well done, Mark.
Oh, thank you. Well done, Ian. And well done, Peter.
Yeah, well done, Peter. Yeah,
Yes.
Peter. Well done, Peter.
With Secular Retreat making the shortlist, there's room for one more down-to-earth home.
So this is your shortlisted project?
House Lessons in County Down, Northern Ireland. It's agricultural, but it's sophisticated as well. I particularly relish the inside-outside spaces.
Lots of very evolved ideas from this architect who've been doing this kind of work for a long while now.
Yeah, they've perfected it, I think.
Yeah.
Low cost, low budget materials. Bring them together with creative flair. That's powerful. Yeah.
Fantastic, fantastic. That's great news. Great news. Unexpected, but great news. Sorry, took me back.
So House Lessons and Secular Retreat make it onto the shortlist. Two homes that are down to earth but also pioneering, not afraid to take a few risks.
The architects designing the houses of tomorrow are going to need a bit of daring do, a bit of courage, aren't they? Because they need to be pushing at the boundaries of what a house is, what it could be. You know, the homes we've seen also have one other important quality in common. Yes, they do push at what's possible, but they also deliver something that lies at the essence of what architecture is. Comfort. They are all really lovely places to live.
Next time, we're looking at houses all grouped by materials and craftsmanship, all vying to get a place on the shortlist.
From up here, the vault is really something special, isn't it?
Before we find out which building is bestowed the title RIBA House of the Year 2019.
You have a complete ribbon of window wrapping around your entire house.
Under 10 sack race 1968 first runner-up. We all receive our fair share of accolades and awards in our lives, but it is a rare few who are honoured with the title Royal Institute of British Architects House of the Year. So who will it be in 2019?
We're on the home straight, visiting the last group of outstanding buildings on the long list that are straining every sinew to take home the big prize.
I think this is magnificent. It's a magical thing.
6 homes have made it to the shortlist so far.
Brilliant.
Oh, well done.
Oh, great.
Today we're looking at the last 5 from the long list grouped together under the theme of materials and craftsmanship.
Oh, that's a glorious thing, like a sculpture.
Later in the show, we'll find out which of them will bag the remaining place on the shortlist.
From up here, the vault is really something special, isn't it?
Then at the end of the programme, we'll find out which house has scooped the great title.
So join us as we size up the last few remaining contenders for the RIBA House of the Year 2019. On your marks, get set, go!
So far, the homes that have made the House of the Year shortlist have ranged from the magnificent and the monumental to the delightfully compact. There are 2 experimental houses. Nithurst Farm, a playful exploration of history,
Oh, hello.
and the meticulously crafted pocket house. Then a pair of homes that melt into their surroundings. The nature lover's restorative rural retreat, and the shadowy black house. And then 2 down-to-earth projects. Secular retreat, powerful and geological, and House Lessons, a modern farmhouse.
In this programme, we'll be looking at a group of homes that explore materials and craftsmanship. Some are exotic and finely dressed, like Italian princesses. Others are more direct, local characters whose materials speak authentically of the place they're from. But whether it's copper, concrete, stone or timber, there's nothing that's not beautifully honed or buffed in this well-crafted bunch.
Our first buffed house is found in the metropolis, the posh bit.
In this very upmarket London neighbourhood, there is down the street a very new upmarket house, rich in invention and materials. This very fine Greek revival house is not it.
Nope. To find it, I've got to lead you up the garden path.
Oh, yeah. Wow, that doesn't disappoint. That's a glorious thing, like a sculpture.
This is House in a Garden. Its funnel-like roof rising between the buildings that surround it on all sides. This overlooked little spot used to have a 60s bungalow on it. When it came onto the market, it caught the eye of the architect Jenny Botsford, who handily lives upstairs.
After 15 years, we found it came up for sale and thought we should really do something with it.
To deal with this tricky location, I think Jenny took inspiration from an iceberg. The funnel is just the tip of a 3-storey, mainly subterranean home. The lowest level is 8 metres below ground, with a swimming pool, yoga room and a living space. 1 floor up and still underground is the master bedroom, guest room and bathrooms, and 2 deep and very necessary light wells. On the ground floor are the lids of the 2 light wells and the kitchen and living space. It's all topped off with that funnel roof reaching out of the shadows like a flower. Its offset shape was computer-modelled to follow the path of the sun, bring in light, and afford privacy from the houses that overlook it. This is an exquisitely crafted building. The RIBA judges admired the quality and refinement of materials and deftness of detail.
Hi, Kevin. Nice to meet you.
And you, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Yeah,
nice
great.
Of you to come.
Beautiful copper on the roof.
Well, it's such a difficult shape to make. We needed a material that's malleable, that you can do that with, and it just bends as it needs to.
The copper-covered roof may be redolent of 1960s churches. Inside, however, it's all cathedral fan vaulting.
And whoa, that is remarkable. This is an absolute marvel.
That view of the sky is amazing, isn't it, to have that?
Completely.
You just kind of get mesmerised with it.
Yeah. What's to make me do is lie down and just look at the sky. I'm going to do that. Yeah, I'm going to. You know, I like lying underneath domes.
Yeah.
And this is like, oh heavens, it's even, it's better. It's as satisfying as lying underneath the dome of the Pantheon.
That's a good one.
You like that? I bet you would.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought you would.
The project was financed by a property investment company who bought into Janny's high-spec range of pleasingly tactile materials. A bespoke copper kitchen, crying out for some fingerprints, behind which sits a flight of stairs lined with huge fluted tiles made of Carrara, the Italian marble from which Michelangelo carved David.
Did you go to the quarry and choose it?
We did, yeah.
It's quite an extravagant thing to do, isn't it?
I mean, it is and it isn't. I mean, if you think about this in 50 years' time, it will be exactly like this, I think. Generally, the materials here we've thought of in those terms. It's kind of not now, but over time, what will they be?
Yeah. You made a really good case for it. It's very compelling.
That's the
If you're going to do it properly.
Yeah.
The first floor below ground level contains the guest and master bedrooms, where the exquisite selection of materials continues.
A lot of beauty here. This is an entirely timber-lined room
Yeah.
with an enormous metal box in it. They're like walk-in industrial fridges, these, because of the stainless material, but actually they're so... Oh, mirrored behind. Exquisite stuff. Not out of a catalogue. Could never be.
Of course, the ensuite is also marble-lined, fit for a visiting Roman demigod, and with a view into the light well that runs down through the house.
Now, this is the hanging garden from upstairs, which now makes its way down here, and below as well.
The huge, deep hole needed to make this house was made possible thanks to the basement contractor Phil Mundy. But depth wasn't his biggest problem. It was access to the site.
Walking down here brings back a lot of bad memories of having to logistically get everything in and out of this project. So everything had to fit in this 1.1 metre wide area, so less than 5 foot. And so what we actually created was a triple-storey scaffold.
Conveyor belts removed 200 lorry loads of earth from this site. They had to use mini excavators that could squeeze into the gap, or pile drivers that had to be disassembled and brought in pieces. Everything moved at a snail's pace.
We could have finished this basement in 2 months, but in fact, because of all the constraints that were put upon us, it took 14 months for us to construct this basement.
But on reaching the lowest level, with a living room and leisure facilities, I can't help but think Phil's extra year in this hole was well worth it.
Another extraordinary, large, beautiful room with a pool.
Yes, well...
yeah, as you would.
You need a pool.
So how light is it? I mean, look, it's 10 past 5.
Yeah.
It's gone a little bit cloudy.
Well, if I turn the light out...
Yeah. But it's beautiful.
And it's a very different experience again in the house.
It's very different. This is magnetically kind of blue, this, isn't it?
And then you swim towards that light. Quite a few aspects in this house where you're taken away from things you're used to and experience something new. And that's one, you know, being in a marble-lined pool with this kind of very concentrated light.
It's not every day, is it, you do that? No. So you might be thinking to yourself, I will never, ever be able to live in a place as beautiful as this. Well, neither will I. But that doesn't matter. Because throughout history, people have put up buildings to be, well, to be inspirational, to be exemplars, to show us the way forward. And just occasionally, people have put up buildings as idealized as this, to simply take our breath away.
Coming up, the final 4 contenders for the RIBA House of the Year 2019.
Oh, my goodness, that is magnificent. I mean, you have a complete ribbon of window wrapping around your entire house.
Of the 3 little piggies, I always felt sorry for the one who was building his house out of sticks. He was most unfairly derided against for his choice of materials. Timber has often been the first and the best choice of material in buildings ever since we left the caves. Of course, Not all wooden houses are created equally. Ooh.
For the next long-listed house, the design expert and writer Michelle Ogundehin is among some slightly bigger sticks, the oaks of Chevethorne Barton in Devon. There are 440 species of oak here, so it's probably the largest oak arboretum in the world. It was started by Michael Heathcote Amory, and when his daughter Jessica came to build a house here, it could only be made of one thing: wood. This jolly wooden wedge, lined with a timber interior with an eye level set at tree height, is Greenhouse, now home to Jessica, her husband Jason, and their 2 children, Jonah and Isadora. It's even built on the site of an old wooden prefab.
Just before my father died, he gave us the house and the surrounding fields.
At the beginning stages of the design process, Jess's father was involved.
It's very sad he didn't get to see the end product.
Hello.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. So there it is. As you approach, it's beautifully concealed by all these gorgeous trees.
That's one of the things the architect wanted to do most, was to create something that fits the landscape. And it looks like you're quite high up and it feels quite sort of treehouse-like.
Unlike a treehouse, Greenhouse has been built on 30 concrete piles to stop it sliding down the slope. On the lower ground floor, built into the hill, are 2 bedrooms and a family room. Then on the upper ground floor, there's a TV room at the back of the house, then the entrance hall, leading to an open-plan living dining area. On the upper floor are 2 more bedrooms with bathrooms, and a double-height space looking down onto the dining area. And the whole thing has been coated in larch that's slowly turning silver, apart from where it's been protected from the Devon weather.
You can see that feels a bit like a sauna in here.
It does, doesn't it?
But there are no sweaty men in small towels. This is a light and elegant space, the main middle floor of the house, a wedge of a room that opens out into an amazing 270-degree window.
Oh, my goodness, that is magnificent. I mean, you have a complete ribbon of window wrapping around your entire house. You now really get that sense of being up in the treetops, don't you?
That giddy sense of height is mirrored above your head, where the ceiling part gives way to a void that extends right up to the apex of the building. The staircase leads to the delightful balcony and library above.
We felt it needed to be opened up a bit, and as it happens, it works really well. It means that these rooms up here are interconnected, and you get a real sense of who's in the house, and you feel quite together as a result.
The glazed middle floor cuts across the building like the filling in a house sandwich, but these aren't the only views to be found. On the upper floors, the bedrooms enjoy corner views for the children, or for the adults to enjoy a soak while losing themselves in the leaves. On the lower level, the playroom and spare bedrooms have slot windows with ground-level views. And if you're not worried about a vista, then head to the narrowest point of the building and its cosy den. The RIBA jury said that Greenhouse abounds with character and personality. The personality behind it is the architect David Shepherd, who was longlisted for his own house, Cobb Corner, in 2017. He's a man with a singular vision and a deep love of all things timber.
Wood is the best sustainable material that you can have on a building. So we minimise the steel, minimise the concrete, maximise in wood.
The interior has oak flooring, birch plywood shelving, beech stairs, and Douglas fir door frames. The outside is clad in larch, which David wanted cut into narrow strips for variation. For the carpenters, David Skelly and Daniel Acton, he was as demanding as a cabinet maker, specifying 5 angled cuts on every length of timber.
So if that's the bottom piece, you have a compound mitre on the bottom with a 45, so that's 2 cuts on that one. A 3rd cut there, and a little expansion joint in there. But yeah, there was a lot of cutting involved and a lot of fixing involved.
And there's, I think we worked out 8 miles of timber on the building here.
Pretty much inside and out, I think.
That added up to 3 months just spent cutting and fixing the cladding.
don't think the clients actually realised how long it would take. And in fact, myself, I didn't realise how long it would take. But in actual fact, I think the end result speaks for itself.
Among all the beautiful detailing and the variety of timbers, David did manage to find a place for some particularly special wood in the dining table and staircase.
About 5 years ago, we had a big storm down here and 2 big beech trees fell down at my parents' house just down the road. And my father said, take it away and dry it, and you might be able to use it in your house.
The wood was stored for 3 years with a local carpenter and sawmill owner, Warren Hughes, who noticed it had begun to spalt, developing a delicate pattern caused by a fungal infection.
On the end of the timber, we can see that the fungus is growing on there to the black on the outside, where obviously the mould is more prolific.
Mouldy stairs don't sound appealing, but once it dries out, the fungal infection dies, leaving a delightful pattern of tracery markings in the wood.
When the oil goes on it and it starts to sink into the timber and enhances all of those marks, it's not uniform, it's not perfect, it doesn't conform to things, but I think this is real beauty.
The resulting stairs and table rightly form the centrepieces to this home and are a link to Jess's father.
He was very pleased that we wanted to live here and have a house here because it was so important to him.
And it's a shame he didn't get to see the finished article, but I think he would have liked it.
This grown-up treehouse not only honours Jess's father's legacy, but also celebrates their mutual love of wood. And with the exacting guidance of their architect, they've created a home that's completely at one with nature.
There's something reassuringly old about stone, isn't there? The most primal, the most primordial of building materials. I fancifully imagine that some antecedent of mine was skinning a mammoth with these very flints thousands of years ago. Stone lends a house a certain permanence. It means that if you build with stone, you better get it right, because it could be around for a very long time.
I'm in Monmouthshire in South Wales, where the local sandstone has weathered many a Welsh winter, and I'm here to see a new house built from this old stone. That's nice. This is Silver How, L-shaped and in 2 parts, the larger, newer stone section and a smaller, converted brick barn. It's home to Emma and David and their daughters Grace and Charlotte. On the inside, they needed a modern family house, but externally it had to feel more like a traditional Monmouthshire building.
We wanted to create a property that felt as if it belonged within this environment.
I'm not averse to more sort of cubist type architecture, but it's not California. It needs to sit in the plot.
Oh, hi.
Hi there.
You Emma?
Yes, I am. Nice to meet you.
Oh, yeah,
Hi.
and you. Hi, Dave. How are you?
Pleased to meet you.
And you,
Very
and you. Congratulations. What an amazing, solid house, you know? So tell me a little bit about this place, because this is how old?
I think 1905 it was built. It's the old coach house to next door, so...
It's hard to tell which is the younger, which is the older building. Because that's got a tile roof and it's painted brick. This is got a metal roof and it's made from local stone.
Even though they're, vastly different materials, and it really, looks right.
The RIBA judges liked the way Silver How marries the lightness and transparency of modern construction with the permanence and craftsmanship of Monmouthshire quarried stone. And inside, the jury praised the open and flexible spaces and acute attention to detail. The new part of the building is arranged over 3 levels. The ground floor has a double-height main living space, next to a secluded snug and office. The first floor has 3 ensuite bedrooms for the family, and the top floor has 2 guest bedrooms and bathrooms. A glass corridor connects to the old coach house, which has a double-height kitchen with a mezzanine playroom. The interior of this older section has all the verve of a modern kitchen garden restaurant.
Ah, this is lovely and refreshing and light and spacious.
They removed a floor to make this big vaulted space, fitted out with a gargantuan wall of oak cupboards that in fact hides a utility room behind and a mezzanine playroom for the girls up top.
We can hear them and they can hear us,
Yeah.
but their toys are tucked away out of sight.
Yes, although I wish they would bring their rubbish down and put it in the bin rather than just...
Launching it only.
Oh, just scamper upstairs just to throw things at you.
Yeah.
So can I get up?
Yeah, right.
Oh,
staircase.
pretty beautiful. Lovely staircase in oak for them. Nice space. Great. Yeah, no, actually from up here, the vault is really something special, isn't it? I can see how tempting it is for them.
Through in the new part of the building, the rustic stone exterior actually hides a steel frame that does all the hard structural work, allowing for an expansive living room and decadent amounts of glass.
We can experience the magic of the outside in and the inside out. This one too?
And that one goes right back, and so does that
Oh, so
one
does
there,
that?
yeah.
Oh, great. Oh, so in fact the entire wall disappears.
The living room connects upwards as well as out. The chimney piece reaches up and past a first-floor walkway that leads to their daughters' bedrooms, which in turn are linked by a shared bathroom and dressing room.
This is you in here, yeah?
This is us.
Mirrors.
Yes.
And the view that way. That's, oh my word. What an amazing little optical illusion that is.
Yeah.
Astonishingly nice. I don't think I'd be able to sleep in here.
The oak trees which frame these views and surround the entire house are all subject to root protection orders, which restricted work near them and dictated the way that the architect, Martin Hall, and designer Kelly Bednarczyk arranged the building.
We pretty much had to thread the plan through a series of root protection areas, and so by creating these no-build zones on the site plan, it sort of actually encouraged us to adopt the floor plan that we did.
It took me a while to convince the contractor to take the project on because he just saw headaches and complexity with it.
To avoid damaging the roots, a system of protective matting was laid over the heavy traffic areas of the site and then topped with aggregate to spread the weight of the diggers and cranes, resulting in a 100% tree survival rate. And a house nestled among the oaks as if it's always been there.
Seems to me that if you want to build something which truly reflects the history of a place, you've got to study in detail the shapes, the angles, the materials of ancient buildings in that place. You've got to understand the qualities of the rock and how stones layer. You've got to even dig the ground and see its colour in order to be able to build something as connected to place and as successful as this.
We're nearing the end of the series, with only 2 of the 20 long-listed houses left to see.
Wow, this is engineering to the max.
But which will make the shortlist, and then maybe even go on to win the RIBA House of the Year for 2019.
The ancient Japanese art of origami involves folding paper hundreds of times to create something of exquisite beauty. It takes really special skills to elevate something simple and ordinary into something remarkable. There. It's a glacier.
This is Warwickshire, an ordinary street with ordinary houses. But Damion Burrows is here to see a house that's taken everyday materials and done something extraordinary with them. This is Ghost House, finely crafted from concrete and steel. It got its name because it seems to be peeking out at its neighbours, as if ready to say, boo. It's home to a nightclub and bar entrepreneur who is a big fan of concrete, Steve Smith.
Steve.
Hi.
How you doing? You all right?
Great, Damion.
Yeah, good to meet you. Incredible house. It's completely opposite to the rest of the street.
Absolutely. It was always meant to be a very simple palette. Concrete, black steel. That's it.
And Steve's pared-back concrete vision has produced a highly crafted and unnervingly well-ordered house, reflected in the pools of water dyed to make a black mirror image.
The reflecting ponds were a later addition. It was supposed to initially be a wild meadow, but actually it would, by its very nature, be wild and unruly and out of my control.
I know what you mean. Nature doing its own thing, that annoys me as well.
Steve's need to control his environment is evident in the perfectly symmetrical layout. The RIBA jury admired the meticulously straight board markings laid out in the concrete. The main floor of Ghost House is actually 3 metres below ground level. At the back is a courtyard garden, then a large open-plan living area, and above is the master bedroom with a bathroom and dressing room. At the front of the house, there's a sunken entrance courtyard accessed by stairs, surrounded by 2 smaller subterranean bedrooms and a home cinema, all under the black pools. As you sink below the black waterline to the front door, it turns out this house is made of almost honey-coloured concrete.
This is so warm, it's so inviting.
It was a local mix, it was a local sand that was used, so there's almost the warmth of a Cotswold stone within the pour. So it isn't grey or steer concrete. Okay.
In case you were expecting scatter cushions and doilies through the front door, it's wall-to-wall concrete and symmetry throughout.
There's a passion for concrete. I love the material and it works. There isn't overkill and it's staying true to the vision and to the belief that we could create something purely out of concrete that doesn't feel austere, that doesn't feel totally brutal, that still feels like a home.
Of course, a real home should feel tailored to its owner's passions. So head around the central courtyard and you find Steve's given himself a home cinema. And then there's the spare bedrooms where he's dedicated 2 dressing rooms to his collection of rare training shoes.
This was my indulgence. I've collected sneakers for many, many years, and this is an opportunity to be able to show them all off.
Yeah? What do your friends think?
My friends love it. I can't say the same about my parents. My mother walked out when she saw this and asked when I was going to grow up.
But who cares what people think when it's your own home? You can display the artwork that makes you happy, and even build yourself a set of mirrored stairs up to your bedroom.
This has been designed so that, if wanted, it could be split into 2 spaces. So a wall down the middle, all the services are in. Again, everything symmetrical around that centre point.
To create this ode to symmetry written in concrete, Steve enlisted the architect Philip Shepherd.
Where did all of this start when you got involved?
It's actually as I graduated out of university, first real project was to meet with Steve, and he came with the ambition of, I want to build a really cool contemporary concrete house, which was very much a challenge for someone newly qualified.
To work with Philip, a specialist concrete contractor, John Thompson, was brought in. Their joint, meticulous work has produced a beautiful finish. All the channels and conduits for wires and fittings were cast into the concrete. Although there was a slight hiccup when one of the formwork moulds gave way mid-pour.
We had one shutter pop, and unfortunately it was when Steve was showing his dad round, and he was walking down the steps and there was a bang. Oh dear, dear.
As we're standing chatting, the shutter blew. And there was a river of concrete right across the site. I blame my dad.
You jinxed it.
Absolutely. At the very top, where we re-poured it, you can see a day joint, but I didn't want to hide it, I didn't want to finesse it. It tells a story of the build.
Ghost House not only tells the story of its own construction, but that of its owner. It is a container for Steve's tastes and passions. not all houses can do that.
Concrete is an uncompromising material, but Steve is an even more uncompromising and driven client. His commitment to his dream, coupled with his team's ability to shape and mould his ideas, have created a beautifully crafted and truly personal home.
There is one final house to see before we find out which of today's 5 will make the shortlist. Then we'll at last find out who has won the RIBA House of the Year for 2019.
The crafts are often unfairly compared to the arts, the making of the functional item on one hand as opposed to the truly sublime on the other. But while the crafted item may not have the lofty ambitions or the high ideals of a piece of art, it can nevertheless be as beautiful and as noble. Plus, crafted objects have the benefit of being useful as well.
The influence of the Victorian arts and crafts movement can be seen here in this part of suburban North London, in the cottagey dormers and chunky chimneys here. But Damion's come to see a house steeped in 21st century craftsmanship. Kenwood Lee House. Up front, the building echoes the proportions of its polite double-fronted neighbours, but round the back, things really start to swing, with an immaculately finished glass box containing courtyards, open stairs and sunken levels. The RIBA judges admired the skill and enthusiasm with which exotic and expensive materials have been deployed throughout. The house was realised by Jomek, a builder, for him and his wife, Ivona. They both arrived in the UK from Poland in the mid-90s.
I got a job as a decorator, painter decorator. So I learned pretty much every trade. I was on tools for just over 10 years.
I've done some decoration as well on
the
weekend,
yeah.
you know, like wallpaper, stuff like that, helping you.
From humble beginnings to master craftsman, Jomek now employs 100 people, and his firm worked on House in a Garden that we saw earlier, as well as 2017's nominated Highgate House. But he's finally managed to make time to build a house of his own.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Very good, thank you.
Hello, hi.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Wow, stunning house.
Thank you very much.
But the thing that stands out from the street is the choice of materials.
We went through so many materials and we're really proud of what we put together. Yeah.
And that care can be seen in the frameless glass dormers, the perfectly finished concrete, the junctions of materials, and the tiniest of brass door details. Kenwood Lee House has a basement level that contains a sunken carport, gym, games room, guest rooms and cinema. It connects to the ground floor through a Lightwell courtyard, up to a living and drawing room at the front of the house and an open-plan kitchen and dining area at the back. The first floor has 4 bedrooms and the top floor their master bedroom suite. Jomek and Ivona put everything on the line by remortgaging the business premises to finance the project, but the results have been worth it.
Wow. I mean, walking inside here, it's just fantastic. The level of execution, the level of detail, the level of thought is mind-blowing.
Of course, there's lots of details and lots of long days and nights, designing, changing.
The interior is a joyous celebration of perfectly selected and finished materials, exemplified by the massive board-marked concrete-lined hall, designed by Jomek and Ivona with the architects Ben and Yelena Cousins.
It's at the structural core of the house, and it enables the whole house to be formed around it.
With a house this size, a concrete middle could be dark. The way around it? Just get rid of some floor.
The 2 sides of the house are connected by bridges with a staircase which is kind of floating.
But floating staircases are not the only engineering marvels here. Down in the basement, a ton of glass literally has been used to make the mother of all patio doors.
Down here?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the one.
And then?
You want it? Yeah. Lift it up, lift it up.
Wow. This is engineering to the max. How easy is that? It just glides, and the top pane goes as well.
The technological basement also houses the gym, spa, cinema room, and a sunken carport that's straight out of a Bond villain's lair. Why, Mr. Burrows, I've been expecting you. Mind you, when you're exhausted after a long day building award-winning houses, you do need somewhere to escape to.
Wow. And we're upstairs to the master suite. I mean, I can see why you put your main bedroom up here. You've got all the views and all the light out to the back.
That's right. It's a pleasure to wake up in the morning and open the curtains.
All this work that you've put into it, have you ever been tempted to sell?
Yes, we have.
That's right. We have 2 agents call and asking us to sell it. And I have to say, it was quite tempting.
Offering ridiculous money.
Yeah.
But we didn't accept it, we didn't take it. Oh, shit.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I am, yeah, good.
That's just the thought of selling this house.
It's very important to us.
It is. Hey.
We put lots of effort into it and laugh, yeah. That's why. I guess we're never going to sell it.
What shines through in this house is Jomek and Ivona's unrelenting passion to build a home that never compromises on quality.
There's real pride in the craftsmanship here. And the results, well, they speak for themselves.
So there we have it, the last 5 long-listed and lovingly crafted houses that are vying for a place on this year's shortlist. Will it be the sunken temple to craftsmanship, house in a garden? Or greenhouse, built as beautifully as a piece of furniture among the oaks? Silver How, a meticulous marriage of the ancient and modern? Or Ghost House, a modernist love letter to concrete and symmetry? Or could it be Kenwood Lee, a passionate labour of love and a hymn to quality?
It's very powerful building.
John Pardey, chair of the RIBA's judging panel, can reveal all.
What have you shortlisted, John?
We've shortlisted one project, which is the greenhouse in Devon. So it's a lovely setting, trees, pastures, water. And there's this thing, and it's got a window at the front, so you know it's a house, it's got a door at the side. But apart from that, you think, what?
Why shortlist this project?
It's original. It's all quite quirky, but actually it works with the site.
Yeah.
It creates exciting spaces.
It's a very evolved, exquisite woodland shed, then.
It's an incredibly beautiful woodland shed, yeah.
Amazing.
That is very good news, David. Well done. You're going to cry.
I feel slightly embarrassed. I mean, it's all been a bit of a roller coaster, the whole thing, hasn't it?
Yes. To have a house that we love as much as this, it's great.
So there you have it. The shortlist is now complete. But which of these will be crowned House of the Year 2019? Nithurst Farm, weaving historical ideas into modern family life. Pocket House, squeezing light and joy-filled spaces into a teeny urban site. Restorative Rural Retreat, a tranquil balm for humans and nature alike on the Isle of Man. Black House, a Scottish shoreline sanctuary that treads lightly on the place. Secular Retreat, an almost geological building perched atop a hill. House Lessons, a subtle but delightful series of quiet sheds in rural Northern Ireland. Or Greenhouse, a lovingly crafted timber wedge nestled into a wooded hill. All exemplary, all in with a chance to win. And that winner is, well, I'll give you a clue. It's not in a city. Well, in this year's series, there have been a lot of farms, a lot of barns, a lot of buildings masquerading as farms and barns. And one of them is a winner. So which of our rural wonders is this year's top dog? It's House Lessons in County Down, a seemingly humble arrangement of 2 simple joined buildings, but joined and detailed beautifully and with great care. It's an example of how someone really clever can take humdrum everyday materials and transform them into something glorious, all for the price of an average detached house. And the clever clogs behind it is the architect Kieran McGonigal.
Really? Unbelievable. Can't believe it. Really. I'm thrilled for everybody concerned and delighted to win it.
I've come to meet Kieran, as well as the owners Sylvia and Michael, who commissioned him to design House Lessons.
Kieran. Yeah. How are you, Kieran?
Kevin, how are you?
Very well, you?
And my husband, Michael.
Michael, yeah. Congratulations on winning, guys.
Humbling experience. It's been really unexpected, but we're really thrilled.
Well, I suppose when we saw his work online, we just really liked it. So we never explored another architect. We never went beyond Kieran.
And Kieran more than proved his worth, creating a house that is a lesson in pragmatic elegance. It's composed of two simple single-storey blocks, one with the living room and kitchen, with a mezzanine office above, and one with a single corridor with 3 bedrooms off it, connecting to a shared courtyard. All this for a budget of £350,000.
It's a relatively modest budget that you spent.
It depends on your frame of reference. Yeah, it was certainly not every penny we have is in it, but so if that's modest.
It is when the house looks like it costs twice that. Kieran's genius lay in his orchestration of inexpensive materials like plain engineering bricks and concrete. His masterstroke was to focus on a single important junction, one horizontal line where walls meet the ceilings.
Everything hits that same horizontal. The white space above is almost completely uninterrupted.
Yes, and it brings a domestic scale to the otherwise tall spaces.
It's a simple yet mesmerising device that yields ethereal white vaulted spaces in every room, while at ground level all feels human and practical.
What I find really disciplined here is that you could have taken those cupboards back there. You could have sailed right to the ridge.
In the future, the client could increase the stories, but for now, it's as much as they can afford.
So it's not self-restraint that's forced you to limit the storage to this?
It's budget, pure budget.
Sylvia and Michael did splash out on the floor, though. It's a beautiful terrazzo, concrete embedded with crushed marble.
Our client was very keen on the durability of the terrazzo, and they asked us could we ensure that the terrazzo withstood tortoise urine.
Tortoise?
Yeah, they had a tortoise, and that was one of the big concerns about the floor, that it could withstand the corrosive properties of tortoise urine.
Whether it would stain and actually eat into the marble?
Yeah.
Wow.
House Lessons is disarmingly modest, carefully organised, and enchanting. It bewitched the RIBA judges.
This was up against some really heavy hitters. Is that an easy winner to choose in the end?
No, as you say, we're up against, it's David and Goliath at one level. There's some big hitters in there. This one, through its modesty and its just sheer strength and its thought and its sophisticated elegance, got there. I mean, I hope buildings like this give a message. You can do something this good at that cost. That's wow.
You know, somebody once told me that a great idea need cost no more money than a really bad one. This place, of course, is testament to that, proof that for the money with which you could buy an ordinary 3-bedroom bland box of a home, you could instead build something outstanding like this, an award-winning home. All you need to do is to follow the example of Michael and Sylvia. Find yourself a great architect like Kieran and go on this great big architectural adventure. Become patrons, commission something special and make your mark in the landscape.